Silksong is the hardest game I've ever tried in my life. In order to 100% it, I'll have to get all the weapons, spool fragments, mask shards, lost fleas, and beat impossible bosses. This game is cruel. The traps, the summons, the brutal platforming. It pushed me beyond my limits. Welcome to 100% of Hollow Knight Silksong. I was imprisoned, escorted by an eerie caravan of bugs, when suddenly something happened. A butterfly liberated me. I was able to break free. The fall was quite hard, but I was able to get up. Using my spear to heal me, I moved forwards, breaking some leaves that blocked my path. That's when I discovered my first area, Grotto, and where I killed my first bug. It dropped something called shell shards, which will be used for crafting later. Jumping over some platforms, I made my way up, killing a flying insect without much effort. Hidden in the top corner, I found a moss berry, which we would need to complete a side mission in the future. Then it began. Darkness swirled around me. I was frozen. I had no idea what was happening, and just like that, it went away. Continuing on, I found a cliff, and dropping down, I grabbed my first rosary string, which was basically money in this world. That strange darkness came back. Thankfully, there was a conveniently placed bench I could use to rest. Here is where I can heal my health, equip new items, and set my respawn point. And good thing that happened, because seconds later, I had to face my first boss fight, the Moss Mother. The thing launched at me with his sting, from one side to the other, even smashing itself against the roof to launch rocks at me. I managed to stun her, but I got hurt quite a bit. I was still getting used to the controls. Nonetheless, I was able to defeat her, unlocking the door to the next area. For a third time, the darkness swirled me, and I passed out.
Hey y'all. Hey. Come on. Hey look. I'm Papa.
I was woken up by the chapel maid, a cute old lady. I told her I was brought by her kingdom by force, captured by strange bugs clad in veils. The lady told me those were the bugs of the Citadel, slaves to something greater. My mission was to seek their Citadel. I intended to find out why they wanted to bring me here. The lady welcomed me to Farlum and told me the kingdom was gripped by a curse. No one returned from the Citadel. And so, a quest begins. I needed to ascend through the lands of Farlum to reach the Citadel at the kingdom's peak. Continuing east, I arrived in the town of Bone Bottom, where I talked to the pilgrims there. Going inside one of the huts, I met with a fearful lady. She told me about rumors of this place. This was a travel station long abandoned. Some said that bugs used to move through them in carriages. I tried hitting the bells, but nothing truly happened. Next, I talked to Pat, the local shopkeeper. She sold a wide variety of items, but I had nowhere near the amount to buy a single thing. Lastly, I met Flick the Fixer. He was repairing the wish wall, which will function as a mission board where we will grab quests from soon. And so, I left the town, in search of this mysterious citadel. As I went deeper, new enemies started to show up, like this chunky bug wearing a skull that charged at me. At one point, the ground fell apart and I was trapped. I had to defeat waves of enemies one after the other. That big guy appeared again. After killing it, I was free. Dropping down the tunnel, I came across this cute lady. She thought her singing made the door open by itself. The lady was really wholesome and even offered her assistance on my mission. I pressed on. Exploring the dungeons without the map was quite difficult. I was losing track of where I was. Then, I found some sort of structure that let me insert rosaries. It was almost all of my money, but I accepted. Turns out I unlocked a new resting place. And so, I arrived to a new area, the Marrow. The place was full of lava and flying embers everywhere. As I went deeper, I came across a sign I didn't recognize. That's when I met the Flea caravan. I talked with their leader, Mushka. They They all welcomed me to rest here. Soon, we'll be able to do some quests for the fleas. Continuing upwards, I discovered the secret path by destroying a fragile wall. The place had some spiky enemies that were a bit annoying to deal with, but I was able to advance and grab some money at the end. Exploring this area had its challenges. Rocks fell from up top, which I had to be ready to dodge. I managed to grab a fade rosary string from a dead bug. I could use this item later to gain some money, without the risk of dropping it if I died. Moving forward, a singing voice caught my attention. It was a warrior. She told me the pilgrims up here had lost their senses, attacking their fellow travelers. The good news was, she was a navigator amongst her tribe and was making maps of these lands. I checked what was for sale. I could buy maps for each single area, a compass to track my location, and even shell markers to track interesting spots. Unfortunately, I was short on money. Chakra told me that if we met again, she would have new maps for trade. I wanted to get all of her wares, so I focused on grinding as many rosaries as I could, killing bugs, grabbing the money, resting on a bench so they would respawn, and repeating the process. While doing so, I came across this. A huge bug trapped between silk. I wasn't strong enough to liberate him right now, but we will come back here later. With the money that I got, I was able to buy my first tool, getting an achievement for it. In order to use the compass, I had to sit on a bench and equip it. Now I could see my exact location on the map. After grinding even more, I was able to buy all the items from Chakra. I could even set pins now. After taking care of that, I ran into the cute singing lady again. She was trying to free the beast from the silk trap with her singing. I told her it would take much more than a song to help. With my map in hand, I headed into unexplored areas, reaching another writing which read, "Weaver of Farlun, by grace you warded, by thread you healed, for your favor eternal we offer our song." This place was full of spiky traps. They took me by surprise often. Maybe they were guarding the door I found next. "Daughter of a distant land, we who remain have waited long. Bind our strength to yours. Reclaim the future of our haunted kingdom." I unlocked a new skill, the Silk Spear. Now I could throw my needle forward, but most importantly, this let me destroy the silk blocking my path. It's just what I needed to rescue the trapped beast. Before going there, I unlocked another path, which led me to meet the moss druid. She seemed to be cooking something in her pot. I asked her about the weavers, if she knew them, if they inhabited this land. She said I spoke nonsense and told me I was a granter of wishes. The druid asked me to find 3 fruits for her. I was able to choose if I wanted to accept the quest. Of course, I did, promising her wish. The mission was to gather 3 moss berries. I already had one in my inventory, so it shouldn't be too hard. I put a marker on the map to remember her location and began searching for these fruits. I came across a shiny flying bug. Killing it made him drop one of the berries I was looking for. I just needed to find the last one now. But first things first, I needed to rescue the trapped beast. Turns out he didn't take it well. I found myself in a boss fight all of a sudden. He jumped from one corner to the other, launching attacks at me. The metal balls hit hard. I tried learning his attack pattern, but I was unprepared. He killed me. I tried again and again, until I was finally able to take it down. Then something emerged out of thin air. Come, child, witness our waking. I consumed something called a silk heart, regaining the power to regenerate silk. Then I woke up, right where I passed out. As I jumped onto the platform, the beast appeared between the rubble, making a huge roar. We were friends now. I could travel to previously visited stations, so I gave it a test ride. The big guy took me all the way through the tunnels, letting me reach the town. I spoke to the merchant, where I bought a craft medal. I wasn't sure what it was for, but the description said it was used by skilled craftsbugs in the construction of tools and trinkets. Turns out the wish wall was repaired. It functioned as a mission board to pick up different quests. For example, bone bottom repairs required me to donate 200 shards to help fix the town. Another mission said that the fleas I met before needed help. Lastly, Garb of the Pilgrims involved defeating violent pilgrims and collecting their shawls. I accepted all of the quests and donated all my shards to complete my first mission. The people were really happy about it. They even told me it was a very kind thing to do and wished me luck on my travels. With that done, I traveled back to where I left thanks to my new friendly beast. Moving forward, I came across a lever which I activated. This unlocked the door to the upper levels of the Marrow. I wanted to explore every nook and cranny of this place. While doing so, I ran into a trapped creature. I managed to free it, but then it went away. Strange. Next, I found a new item, a shard pendant. This would allow me to collect more shell shards from defeated creatures. I went to a resting place to equip it, but it turns out I could only have one active item of the same category. I needed to choose between the compass and the shard pendant. As tempting as it was, I ended up keeping the compass, because I was already having a hard time knowing where I was and where to go next. I headed all the way east until I came to a dead end. There was a huge pool of lava and nowhere else to go or jump to. So I decided to visit the fleas to help them with their wish. Their leader told me they needed to find other fleas so they could all travel together. Their cousins were out there in hiding or stuck in dangerous places. Turns out the creature I held before was one of the fleas, and he was right there flying in the air. I pushed forward to unexplored places, and that's when I discovered this. I got hurt, but at least I found a secret path. But surprises didn't end there. At the end of it all, I found craft metal, the same thing I bought back in the town. I hoped it was worth it. I continued killing bugs, which dropped pilgrim shawls. I needed to collect a total of 12 of them to complete the quest. But then that thing annihilated me. I tried fighting it once more, but it was literally impossible to beat right now. I needed to unlock more skills. I decided to explore another part of the map. The verticality was amazing. Having to synchronize my swings perfectly in order to jump forward was a really great mechanic. I even found another secret entrance, which had more of those bouncy things I had to use to move across. I found a chest full of rosaries at the end. Places like these were scattered all over the world. For example, in this section, I saw a glowing thing while falling to the ground. I went up again, managed to take a swing at it, and it exploded, revealing a breakable that gave me a lot of shards. And part of the beauty of the world was how intertwined it was. Here, I activated a mechanism, which functioned as a shortcut and a pathway forward. I managed to quickly go back to the boss that killed me and grab my rosaries back. But this time, I made sure to stay away and not fight. I dropped down instead and found an entrance. It took me to some sort of prison. I talked to a bug who asked me how to get them out of there. Even if I wanted to, I wasn't sure how. All the doors were locked. I even saw these weird things hanging from the ceiling. Really eerie. Continuing my way down, I reached the lava level again, where I fought a new kind of bug who had quite an interesting helmet. There was even a flying variant. They didn't stand a chance. After clearing everything, I discovered the deep docks. Behind some locked doors, I found a strange item floating. It looked like a broken health shard. I needed to find a way to get there. Using some elevators, I managed to unlock a new resting point. But once again, the doors were locked. So I took another path, which led me to the map maker chakra Kora. We talked about how impressive this whole outpost was. The Citadel must be grand beyond measure. With the money that I got, I was able to buy the Deep Docks map and the vendor pins. This would let me see the location of the merchants easily. Heading east, I heard some singing, but the door was locked. It probably was a boss fight, but I needed to figure out how to enter. The only way forward for the moment seemed to go down. This led me into another trap, an arena where I had to fight tons of bugs, including some little ones that used shields. They looked pretty cute, but I put them out of their misery. After doing so, I met the Forged Daughter. She seemed to be a smith of some kind. She solved new blades. For example, a sting shard, which required the craft metal I bought. What I was lacking now was rosaries though. I kept going down and saw new creatures. One of them looked like a slime and threw lava. With just one hit, it took off 2 points of health of me. Moving further right, I found a zone filled with magma on the ground, and even the platforms burned me when I stepped on them. Crossing to the other side, I reached the lever. Activating it shifted the platforms, allowing me to reach a new area. There, I gathered an item. It was a spool fragment, one half of an artifact left behind by the weavers. A completed spool will let me carry more silk within my shell. Backtracking, I discovered the travel station. By paying rosaries, I played a melody that activated a mechanism. Now I could call the beast and fast travel between the Deep Docks, the Marrow, and Bone Bottom. Heading upward, I found a strange insect that looked like a kangaroo's skeleton. It jumped around harmlessly, unaffected by magma. Next, I blew open the roof of a cavern with an explosive, revealing a path to a new resting zone, where I paid some rosaries to get a new bench. Soon after, I was trapped and ambushed by red ant-like insects. They fought with daggers. Then small ones appeared, even flying variants. After a really tough battle, I defeated them all and was able to advance. Funny thing, what actually killed me was a rock trap. Yeah. Once I returned, I finally discovered another mysterious door. A swirl of energy erupted. Everything went black, and I gained a new ability, the sprint. Now, I could run at blinding speed, jump further, and even dash mid-air. There was no energy limit, no stamina. I could use it endlessly. I felt invincible with this. The game had opened up to a whole other level. Nearby, I found one of the fleas stuck. I liberated it, and the little creature happily went away. With the dash, I could finally reach places I hadn't been able to before. I unlocked a lever that opened the path to the next boss. She was singing as if it was leading a choir. The fight was brutal. Her strikes with the rapier were swift and unpredictable. It was hard to get a grasp of her pattern. I even fell into the lava at one point, dying time and time again. I needed to focus. Finally, I defeated Lace. Thanks to this, I unlocked a new area, the Far Fields. It was a green land filled with new weird creatures, but also more of those ant warriors. This time, I faced a bigger one that looked like a samurai, fighting along another ninja ant. They were too strong. I had to escape. Exploring deeper, I reached an area where a huge mechanoid loomed in the background. He was just there, stuck, unmoving. It was quite eerie. Then, I found some sort of hut I was able to get inside. The seamstress was there. I told her I was looking for answers. She said she could help me rise from these low fields if I gathered spines from the creatures in the caves beyond. If I brought enough, she would transform my cloak. I accepted the mission. Outside, I noticed strong winds rising from the ground. If I fulfilled this mission, I would be able to ride those currents. I proceeded to hunt the creatures, which looked like spiky spheres, collecting the spines. I also gathered pilgrim shawls until I had 12, enough to finish the quest from Bone Bottom, but that's for later. Next, I found a massive gate I could not open. Hitting it only made a deep sound. I realized the spines I needed to collect were the projectiles those creatures threw. I baited their attacks, got the spines, and collected them. I quickly reached the necessary amount and returned to the seamstress. She gave me the Drifter's cloak, which let me ride strong winds and glide. Before leaving, she asked if I knew why I was being hunted. It was because of the silk inside my shell. The old weavers had that skill, and they were long gone. Outside, I tested the cloak. I glided like a parachute. It was actually pretty cute and funny. I also used the wind to rise, blowing open passages with explosives to reveal more currents. I had to go through places full of spikes. Riding the wind between them, I uncovered a mask shard by exploding the ground. 1 of 4. Completing all the pieces would strengthen my shell and give me more health. With the new cloak, I was discovering more secret paths. One led me to a bone scroll, a crude journal of quartz fabric and bone from a fallen pilgrim. Once the area was all clear, I made my way out, and that's when the new boss appeared. I won. Finally, I was able to use the currents to escape the area, unlocking a resting place with rosaries and paying to open a fast travel point. I returned to Bone Bottom, turned in the Pilgrim's Garb quest, and received a rosary necklace. I also bought a rosary string to protect my currency, then headed back to the far fields. There, I found the singing lady again, and then went inside a hut called Pilgrim's Rest. The merchant was called Mort, and he sold some items, but they were quite expensive. I decided to save my rosaries for the smith. At the gate on the eastern side, something snarled and struck from behind the bars. I then climbed higher, blew open the ceiling, and emerged in Greymore. I found a device that cost 80 rosaries to activate. It turned out to be a machine for making rosary strings. Not bad. Then I finally met the map maker again. She warned me about the lake ahead, guarded by skilled flying enemies. I bought all of her maps and went on. Rain fell over me. I swam through pools of water and fought the new annoying flying enemies, even a larger one with a rapier. Deeper in, I was trapped in a gauntlet and had to defeat waves of them. I died on the first try, but made it on the second. At the top, I pulled the lever. Now I was able to hit some things to bounce higher, opening new routes. I climbed as much as I could and reached a pathway with a lever that opened the door. Moving forward, I found another lever that dropped the chain, revealing more of those bouncy things. It turned out to be a shortcut that led all the way back to the map maker. I kept exploring, unlocking more doors and levers. Activating one of the giant bells revealed a new bench where I could rest. Progressing through the bird area meant bouncing again and again on those spheres. It wasn't easy. If I missed one, I had to do it all over again. In one section, spikes surrounded everything, and I died to a bird. But I tried again, pushing forward. Eventually, I found another ancient door. I gained a new skill, Thread Storm. It let me whip silk in a storm around me. Timing on this thing was a bit tricky, but I tried it on some birds and it felt quite good. Later, I found a new tool, the threefold pin. I went to a bench and equipped it. It acted like a ranged shotgun-style attack, though with limited ammo, so I had to use it sparingly. Exploring further, I found another bone scroll. Then I stumbled upon some bugs standing still, singing. One carried a stick of sorts. I thought they were friendly, but they were not. The one with the stick hit incredibly hard. Heading west, I discovered halfway home. Inside, I met Crage. They were quite nice, asking if I wanted a drink or to rest. Further up, I met someone called New. Her appearance was pretty unique. She asked if I was ready to hunt and gave me the Hunter's Journal, telling me to fill its pages with the records of my cuts. Checking it out, I had already slain 38 out of 100 bucks required. Leaving halfway home, I was trapped in a gauntlet with new enemies. Killing them added info to my journal. I even faced a bigger insect wielding a trident. The fight was tough, but I managed to survive, opening the way forward just to die seconds later to a tiny flying insect. Yeah, pushing on, I unlocked another fast travel point. I used it to pay a visit to the smith. There, I bought a crafting kit, which I think boosted my tool damage. Stronger now, I returned to face the boss that had killed me before. With my new speed, I dodged its attacks more effectively. I still died, but eventually I won. Defeating it unlocked a new area, Hunter's March. The game was opening up more and more. I still had a Greymore to explore, but for now I chose Hunter's March. Oh boy, what a big mistake that was. Here I freed another trapped Flea. The area was so tricky, filled with those bouncy things and spikes, but that was nothing compared to what was coming up next. Soon I was trapped in another gauntlet. The first wave was one of those samurai ants. Not too bad. Then a couple of little flying bugs, fine, but on the third wave, I had to face both a ninja and a new flying enemy at the same time. It was actually so hard to keep track of everything. Together they destroyed me. The whole section was brutal. Both the gauntlet and the platforming to get back to it. I kept dying over and over and over and over again. I lost track of how many times. I ended up giving up for the moment and used fast travel to return to Greymore. I'll have my rematch once I'm stronger. Exploring here, I found a new enemy wielding giant scissors. Its entire moveset was just attacking with them, which looked quite funny. Climbing the tower, I reached a spinning wheel with spikes attached. Carefully maneuvering past it, I met Garamond and Zaza. I woke him up from a nap and we talked for a bit. They seemed really wholesome. Next, I came to an entrance decorated with scissors hanging from the ceiling. Inside, candles filled the room, giving it a creepy atmosphere. This was the Chapel of the Reaper. It felt like a boss was coming, so I looked around for a bench to rest. Moving deeper inside, I found a message. May we catch the dregs and never tire. May we clean the dregs and never hunger. May we spool the dregs and never falter. It didn't give me anything, but it seemed really creepy. The chapel was very dark, and soon I ran into a huge rat-like beasts. They were much larger than the small ones I had seen before. Killing one rewarded me with a memory locket, described as a keepsake containing a precious memory. I could use this to expand the crest. At a bench, I could gain one slot with it. Unsure which to pick, I saved it for later. Then a second rat killed me, sending me all the way back to the Marrow. I lost all my rosaries. Returning to Greymore, I rested at the bench in halfway home just in case. On the way to retrieve my belongings, I activated a lever that opened the shortcut door. That should make things easier. I recovered my lost money and then got trapped in another gauntlet. That fight destroyed me. I died time and time again, until I realized that using my special ability was really useful. The Silk Spear was the key to survive this fight. Moving on, I continued climbing the chapel. At the very top, there was a corpse. I stabbed my spear into it. I had bound the crest of the Reaper. I could attack with heavy arcing slashes and rip additional silk from enemies. My slashes were slower, even the downward and aerial strikes, but I could recharge more silk per hit. The sprint attack now also launched me upwards. Back at halfway home, I equipped the compass, the threefold pin, and Silk Spear with the Reaper crest. This might finally help me survive, or so I thought. Marrow, a massive fly creature. The fight was brutal. It lunged at me, forcing me to jump and counter with downward strikes. The thing also launched projectiles and used its sharp legs to attack. But that wasn't all. In the second phase, it became faster and changed his pattern. The difficulty spike was insane. I died again and again and again. But then, after countless tries, this happened. Continuing on, I read a sign, Pilgrim. This settlement welcomes all who step the holy path. May you ease your shell within, that your strength renewed can carry you higher. Everyone in this town was strung up, bound in silk, moaning in pain. I needed to break the silken curse that had ensnared Bellhart. It was awful. I unlocked the fast travel point and kept exploring. I wanted to help these people. Heading west, I reached the Shellwood area. I had to fight through a gauntlet. Flying flowers enemies attacked, followed by stickbugs, which were surprisingly tough. Somehow, I defeated them all. After unlocking a resting place, I found an elevator that carried me down. The whole area was beautiful, like a jungle. I stepped on a button that opened a massive gate, which worked as a shortcut back. Heading west, I found the map maker again. She told me about the settlement and the box I had seen, calling it Threat Sickness. I bought all of her maps. Further along, I encountered a new enemy wielding a rosary whip. Its range was massive, but I managed to kill it, earning a big pile of money. I unlocked another fast travel point, then bounced on some flowers to reach a cavern above. There, I destroyed a flower that dropped a polyp heart. Not sure what it was for. The description said it was the core of a flower formed around the body of a consumed wood wasp. Then came another boss fight, the sister Splinter. The thing attacked from above, spawning spiky plants that blocked my movement and constantly summoned minions. I got quite frustrated in the beginning, died a good amount of times. The problem in this fight wasn't the boss itself, but the minions. After a few more attempts, I focused on them specifically. The key was to use my Silk Spear skill against the little ones. With this, they died in one hit. That let me focus fully on the boss itself, which made all the difference. Finally, I came up on top. Winning unlocked my path, leading me to another one of those ancient doors, and I gained a new skill, Cling Grip. It let me cling to walls, leap, and rapidly scale heights. Basically, it was a wall jump. I could even slide down walls. It felt amazing. Exploring new paths with this skill, I found another polyp heart, though I still had no idea what to do with them. Continuing on, I killed some new enemies with bells on their heads. They looked pretty cute. Along the way, I rescued another trapped flea. Then I met a strange bug playing strings of silk. She called me a rare birthling, child of worm and weaver, spawn of those who dared to flee. She was a boss, the widow. Her moves were erratic, jumping around swiftly, throwing bells, and even summoning them from the ground. I tried so many times. The first half of the boss fight is simple. Dodge her bells and melee strikes, and when you need to get out of the ground, just climb the wall. Stay patient. The second half is chaos, too much to track for me. I learned online that if you stand at the far right wall, most attacks can't reach you. There's a small chance the bells will hit, but you can heal that. Just wait for her melee attack, jump, and take a swing. Continue doing that, and eventually she will go down. With this victory, I had bound the ancestral art of needling, but then I woke up in a silk-ridden place. Darkness, strange shadows, and sounds reverberating all over. Carefully, I made my way up and forward, reaching a door where I used my new skill. Inside, spiders moved through the background. The entire section was a platforming challenge, climbing, wall jumping through the silk. At the end, I reached something I could inspect. For her light, eternal, our song sustains. I woke up in the boss arena. The bell was restored. Activating it gave me a new bench and seemed to complete one of my objectives. I went back to Bellhart. The townsfolk were free. The place was saved. I met Pavo. He told me this was the last friendly stop before the Citadel. Then I spoke with Frey, the shopkeeper. She survived by hiding in her bell home with supplies, though she had to eat through most of her stock. She promised she would have more once her courier returned. Next to the shop, I found another wish wall full of quests. I accepted them all. One mission asked me to find her missing courier, last seen in Shellwood. In another hut, I met Scrounge, the relic seeker. She wanted anything with history. She claimed she could smell a relic on me, so I gave her the bone scrolls. In return, she paid me rosaries, not bad. Then I met Pen Master Pliny. He could sharpen my needle to upgrade my damage. Of course, I accepted. My blade was sharper, but Pliny said I could hone it further. To do that, I'd need pale oil from the Citadel. Lastly, I found Chakra. She was resting in town, though she only sold markers this time. I also learned that if I played melodies near other bugs, they sung along. Leaving town, I explored Shellwood. On the ground, I found tracks I could follow. This had to be the courier. I traced them step by step. On the way, I paid for a new resting spot, and not long after, I stumbled into a mini-boss fight. A huge creature roared from the ceiling, spitting acid goo. I ran for my life. Heading left, I came across a stone gate with a simple keyhole. I remembered a vendor in the starting town selling a simple key. Maybe it belonged here, though I didn't have it yet. Next, I found a health shard hidden in a secret spot, 2 out of 4. After a really difficult spike-filled section where I died multiple times, I managed to rescue another flea. And further on, I uncovered another shard, making 3 out of 4. Here is where I discovered the Wormways area. The tunnels were crawling with worms. Before delving into it, I focused on rescuing the courier. I found him being harassed by some insects, which I killed. He was really grateful for the help, and the quest was completed. Now the shop should have some interesting stuff to sell. We'll check it out later. With that done, I ventured deeper into Wormways. The enemies hit incredibly hard. I even found a relic laying near a dead bug. I also ran into Chakra again. I asked about her master. She said it was hard to track him here because the worms kept churning the tunnels. Still, she was sure he had passed through. I bought a map of the area from her. Climbing higher, I found a hidden rosary string, and going down, I unlocked a shortcut that led back to the locked door requiring the simple key. Later, I reached an area full of wind and sand, the edge of Farlum's territory. This seemed like the end of the map. I couldn't progress further, so I turned back. After unlocking another resting point, I entered a new zone, the Blasted Steppes. There was a full-blown sandstorm, winds howling, bugs crawling out of the ground. It was incredible and beautiful. I had to duel a new enemy wielding a shield and a mace, almost like a royal guard. Exploring further, I reached the next boss fight, the Great Conch Flies. 2 at once. They drilled through the stage from every direction and spat out a spike bouncing all over. I died almost instantly. The worst part was that I didn't have a map for the area. On the way back to the boss, I found a memory locket. Then, fortunately, I ran into Chakra and bought the map from her. Finally, I knew where to go. At one point, I activated a lever that moved some elevators, creating a path upward. With the map, a bench, and a fast travel point, things became manageable. Still, the stress of this game is insane. In the end, the fight turned out to be quite simple, compared to the others at least. The trick was patience, to land safe hits, not get greedy, and accept getting hit by the occasional projectile. Once I killed one of the 2 bosses, the fight ended. Afterward, I pushed through a heavy sandstorm, leapt over the worms bursting from the ground, and reached the hut. Inside, there was a bench and a new character, Pinstress. She offered to train me. I accepted, of course. I learned a new skill, Needle Strike. Holding the needle charged power, unleashing a deadly blow. It didn't even cost silk. I tried it out and loved it. I thanked Pinterest for the knowledge with a song. Checking the map, I saw I was close to the Citadel. On a nearby bench, I even found a singing lady asleep. She said she had him looking for a cozy place to rest. We made some music together too. Moments like this help me keep my sanity. Then I found the Grand Gate. Pilgrims stood before it. They told me only the holy bells would open the way. They marked their locations on my map. Actually, only one was remaining, located in Shellwood. I fast traveled there but found the door closed. Circling all the way through blasted steps, I managed to activate a lever that rang the bell. This also unlocked the resting point and opened the closed door. The objective was now complete. Returning to the Grand Gate, the pilgrims said the bells had awoken. Now, only music was needed to attune them. I tried again. The boss had clear patterns. He jumped overhead. I had to dodge underneath or move away. This was the right window to attack. The dangerous part was his spinning attack surrounding him, and sometimes he even hurled his bell forward. It was crucial to stay away. By attacking him in the right moments, I was able to reach phase 2, around my third attempt. Then he added flame attacks. They tore me apart, and that wasn't the worst of it all. This fight had the worst run back ever. The path to get back to the boss was full of enemies and annoying platforming. I died twice in a row before even reaching the room to fight. Once I managed to fight him again, I died in one hit. His phase 2 was the worst. Not only were there flames all over with his spinning attack, but when he hurled his bell, it exploded after impacting the floor. It felt impossible. I decided to explore other areas, to farm rosaries and see if I could buy items to help me. First, I fast traveled to Greymore, headed west and climbed the tower. Thanks to wall climbing, I reached a new area. At the end of the hallway, I found an elevator that acted as a shortcut, taking me all the way down to halfway home. This time though, I went up and continued right. Behind the wall, I found a secret entrance and freed a fly, stuck in silk. His name was Crest. He said he was setting out to join a Flea caravan and that his carriage held a special secret he would share next time we met. Further on, I entered a new zone, Sinner's Road. The place was filled with cages, each holding creatures inside. The enemies here were brutal, hitting extremely hard. Then I came across one imprisoned insect, the Green Prince, who asked me to leave him be. His cage had a simple lock, which I guess required a simple key. I wanted to mark the spot on my map, but I couldn't since I was missing the actual area's map. Sinner's Road was the worst area so far. Flying enemies bombarded me with projectiles, spikes covered everything, and I had to pogo jump constantly. Somehow, I managed to survive the section and reach the top right corner, where I met two bugs, Kroll and Benjen. They gave me a mission to hunt muck roaches and collect their guts. Exploring some more, I discovered the secret location and found a new item, the barbed bracelet. It increased the damage I dealt, but also the damage I took. With that, I began farming rosaries. I spent the entire time killing enemies, then resting at benches to reset them, over and over again. After a lot of grinding, I finally had a good amount of money. I spoke with Craig, the innkeeper, who told me he had a bird problem and wanted a scarecrow to deal with it. To build one, he needed rag pelts. Before doing that, I wanted to spend my money. So I fast traveled to the deep docks and visited the Forged Daughter. I bought the magma veil, which reduced damage taken from flame and magma. Exactly what I needed for the last judge fight, since many of his attacks were fire-based. I also bought the sting shard. Testing it, I saw it worked like a blade stuck mid-air. Striking it released spikes. I wasn't too interested honestly, so I preferred my threefold pin. Next, I traveled to Bellhart and spoke with the shopkeeper. Her shelves were better stocked now that the courier had arrived safely. Among her wares, one item stood out, the multi-binder, something related to healing. But it was far too expensive, so I held off. Instead, I bought a spool fragment, which increased my silk capacity. At the Wishwall, I donated some rosaries to the town. Then I visited Pilgrim's Rest to buy the weighted belt and expand my tool pouch. I also used the memory locket to expand my crest, letting me equip both the compass and another item at the same time. Finally, I bought another locket and equipped the weighted belt. It reduced knockback, letting me stay closer to enemies while striking. While exploring, I freed another flea and found a secret spot where I got the warding bale. It shielded me while healing my wounds. Back at the bench, I expanded my crest again and equipped it alongside my magma bale. I was slowly arming myself for the rematch against the judge. Before facing him, I returned to the caravan at the Marrow and spoke with Crest, the flea had rescued earlier. He revealed his secret. His carriage was actually a spa. I paid the fee and stepped inside. The hot water healed me. That fly should be grateful to still be breathing. After that, I spoke with the caravan master and completed the mission. He offered me to travel with them. I accepted. When we arrived, the flea master introduced me to Greshkin, who invited me to drink his brew. He gave me a new item, a flea brew, a tool that temporarily increased movement and attack speed. I expanded my crest again so I could equip it. With all these upgrades, maybe now I could stand a chance against the judge. I traveled to the blasted depths and fought the boss again. Even with my new items, it wasn't easy. I died over and over until I locked in. After countless attempts, I finally did it. Things would only get harder from here. Stepping in, I pressed the button to open the gate and moved forward. The place was covered in spiderwebs. I inspected a strange machine showing a model of the Citadel. By inserting rosaries, I was rewarded with the Grand Gate map. In the next room, I entered a massive elevator. The doors closed behind me, leaving only a lever. I pulled it, but the mechanism was old, slowly getting stuck until it broke apart and the elevator plummeted. Everything went black. When I awoke, everything was wrecked. Darkness surrounded me. Barely alive, I pressed forward, finding a device where I could insert rosaries, turning it into a new resting spot. Finally, I could breathe. After activating a lever, I entered the Underworlds. New flying enemies attacked me with sharp tools, but they weren't much of a problem. I kept climbing, fighting, and unlocking levers until I found the crude map of the Underworlds. I needed to find a way up to get back to the Citadel. Moving on, I broke into a ventilation system filled with hot air blasts. Inside, I killed a bat-like creature, passed by countless corpses, and collected a bone scroll. I will take it back to the historian at Bellhart later. The area was full of machinery, spinning wheels, moving blades, and platforming hazards. I even saw a shard behind a locked gate I couldn't reach yet. Eventually, I opened a shortcut that led to a resting place. The bench required payment, and the room was covered in corpses. Creepy. There was also a strange device that accepted rosaries. A voice spoke. "Speak now, thy confession will be heard. You have confessed a sin most grave, and must by works cleanse yourself. Return to your task and work off cycle, neither eating nor stopping until new cycle begins. By the grace of Farlom Eternal, may you never tire. Toil and be forgiven. It was awful. These weren't workers, they were prisoners. Then, a huge enemy appeared. I was inside a gauntlet once more. It took me many tries, but I managed to clear it out and pressed forward. At one point, I rested in what looked like a little fountain of water. It seemed like a dead end, but the real path was west. There, I found another spool fragment and a new zone, the Coral Chambers. It was stunning. Chandeliers I could climb, bugs in pristine robes instead of pilgrim shawls. Everything felt ornate and fantastical. I quickly found a machine that displayed a model of the Citadel and bought the Coral Chambers map with some rosaries. Then I ran into Lace again, the rapier fighter I had met earlier. I thought it was a boss fight, but after mocking me, she left, sending her lackeys to fight in her place. What a coward. Soon after, I found a door with a white lock bearing a surgical symbol. Next to it stood an old elevator, locked tight. This will be important later. I kept going higher, eventually reaching a musical puzzle. After 3 successful attempts, I was rewarded with a cog heart piece. Not sure what it was for though. Later on, I fought a flying rapier-wielding insect. When I killed it, another bug came out of hiding and introduced himself as Grindle. He said he had come to the Citadel because he was supposed to be full of riches, but it wasn't. I told him to leave before he got in trouble. He left and told me I was the one who should leave. Later, I unlocked the resting place for the Coral Chambers, then paid the rosaries to activate fast travel. But instead of a beast, it was a tube-like transport system called Ventrica. It could move me between the first shrine and Terminus. I tried traveling to this Terminus and, judging by the map, it carried me far up into the Citadel. At the station, I found only a bench and a sign, but that's it, so I went back to the first shrine. I seemed to have reached an exterior section. There, I went inside an entrance that led me to a bale trapped in silk. I cleared everything and activated it, unlocking a bench to rest. As I stepped out, a hidden bug spoke to me. He was called Caretaker. He complained that I woke him up with the bell and said that the sound would attract the wretched and the lost here. Going right, I found a corpse carrying a white key. Its description said it granted access to the Citadel's white ward and was shaped like a surgical tool. That's for the elevator I found before. Exploring further, I ran into a huge mob. It killed me in one hit. Respawning at the shrine's bench, I noticed more bugs had gathered at Songclave. All of them were victim, looking for refuge. There was also a wish wall now. I accepted every mission, though one required donating 300 rosaries. Another quest asked me to track the wandering merchant, last seen in the lower Coral Chambers. Another required collecting flowers, and the last one involved hunting choir bugs for fine pens. Further on, I was suddenly trapped in a room. A giant clock ticked in the background. This was a new boss, the Clockwork Dancers. This fight was beautiful. The way the mechanoids moved in unison with such elegance and rhythm, gathering in the center of the room, lifting one another. I dodged and swung my blade at them. Then they became faster, alternating their moves. After a few tries, I managed to down one of them, entering a new phase. The surviving dancer still fought, but it was heartbreaking. At one point, he went to the center of the stage, but his partner wasn't there to embrace him, falling into the ground. I had to put him out of his misery. The background shifted and revealed some huge statues. Inspecting it triggered some voices. Pilgrim of Farlom Eternal, rare chosen who had ascended to this final threshold. Listen to our wish. Deliver it, that you may rise above and see your pilgrimage end. Regale us with our threefold song, that you may rise above and worship before our kingdom's divine heart. New pathways opened. The statues went silent. My new objective was to learn the threefold melody to open the path to the Citadel's Crest. I would need to learn the melodies of the conductors, architects, and vault keepers. Their symbols appeared on my map. I entered a new area, the Clockwork core. I also unlocked a new resting point and bought the map for the region. The entire place was full of spinning gears. Mechanoid bugs roamed everywhere. After fighting through a gauntlet where the ground itself shifted beneath me, I earned a mask shard. It completed a set of 4, granting me extra health. Next, I went looking for the locked elevator that needed the white key. On the way, I discovered something new, a silk eater. I could use this item to recover a cocoon after dying. Interesting. Soon after, I reached the keyhole and used the white key. The elevator unlocked and carried me down into a new area, the White Ward. The place was abandoned, covered in spiderwebs and dust. It was eerie and suspiciously silent. Deeper inside, I found an ornate lock mechanism with a keyhole at its center. I also came across a relic, the Coral Commandment. This was for the relic collector back at Bellhart. The unsettling part was that it had been placed inside a cradle. As I turned to leave, a new enemy appeared. It was possessed, its head wrapped in silk like a zombie, lashing out silk tentacles. But I managed to kill it. I pressed on, breaking through debris and climbing up through the elevator shaft until I reached the bench, which had a corpse just lying there. From the ceiling, I knocked down web sacks that restored my silk meter. One even gave me another silk eater. Past that, I found a machine with the map of the area. In the next room, a new enemy rushed at me, swinging a pair of scissors. I dodged and countered until it fell. It was a mortician, described as an altered servant of the Citadel's White Ward. At this point, I had discovered 99 out of 100 bugs in my journal. Only one remained to complete the wish. Exploring deeper, I found a new tool, the injector band. This increased the speed of healing. I equipped it at the bench. The animation was much faster. Huge difference. Finally, at a secret area, I killed the new bug, completing the set, discovering 100 bugs. Dropping further into the Underworlds, I saw something terrifying in the background. A massive mechanoid chained in place. It didn't move, but it looked exactly like one of the bosses I had fought before. After resting on a bench, I saw chains and rings hanging from above, but I couldn't use them yet. I needed a new skill for that. I did find another soul fragment though, increasing my silk bar even more. Finally, I unlocked another fast travel point, connecting the Underworlds with the first shrine and terminus. Shortly after, I was trapped in a gauntlet. It took me a few tries, but I was able to win and get another spool fragment. Then I entered a lava zone and discovered another ancient structure. Here, I gained the new skill I needed, Claw Line. By pressing L2, I could fling my needle like a harpoon, latch onto rings, and launch myself forward. It also acted as a stronger mid-air dash. I tested it, clinging and propelling myself across the air. It was amazing. With this, I could go to so many new places. I used it to climb one of the caverns full of rings, and at the top left corner I found a shard bundle. Eventually, I met someone called the 12th Architect. She was busy working when I arrived. I asked if she was an enemy, but she wasn't. She told me building wasn't her choice. And since I was from a weaver lineage, she would follow my commands. She offered items for sale, tools, equipment, and even an architect's key. But to earn it, I needed to acquire 14 more tools. Not far from her, I found the locked architect gate itself. I needed that key to open it. After liberating a flea, I explored the Underworlds and discovered a new tool, the Delver's Drill. Right next to it, I destroyed a hidden wall to the right, but it only led to a dead end. Striking the metal wall echoed loudly, and I even heard the reverberating screams of a bug. Back at the bench, I tested the new tool. I turned into a spinning drill and thrust it downwards. Pretty good. While exploring the coral chambers, I came across a flea fighting enemies. There were Garmon and Zaza. He looked hilarious riding his tiny bug mount. I played a melody to celebrate our victory. Continuing through the chambers, I found tracks I could follow. Then I collected a fine pin, part of a side quest that required 10 of them. I kept hunting for some more. Eventually, I reached a new zone. This felt different from the Citadel. There were new enemies. One was a guard fly. I then encountered the prisoner, blindfolded. He was supposedly being punished for sins committed within the Citadel. It was awful. I ended his suffering. Deeper in, I came across a lock bearing the mark of the apostate. After resting at the bench, I unlocked a new fast travel point. This time, instead of the Ventrica system, it was my beast friend. I could finally travel back to the zones outside the Citadel. Exploring further, I found a cold area where I got a spool fragment. Snow fell from the sky and the screen itself started to freeze. My health drained rapidly. I couldn't survive for long. I thought I needed special equipment to progress, so I turned back. Then I began heading towards the conductor's melody location. On the way, I rested at the new bench. I used my clawline skill to climb higher and higher through the Citadel. This led me to a new zone, the high halls. One room was full of water. The currents pushed me back and I had to jump across platforms against the flow. Heading east, I fought a lot of enemies and then glided past endless spikes. One mistake and I would have to restart the entire section. Eventually, I reached the bench and unlocked a new fast travel point, linking the high halls to other regions. I also bought a new map. Moving on, I came across an ornate door with a simple lock, another place for a simple key, which I didn't yet have. But then I stepped into a gauntlet room. This one was probably one of the worst in the whole game, the one that broke me to the core. The amount of waves was insane. At one point, a huge bug with a maze appeared, which I thought was the final mini-boss. By the way, it wasn't, and I died. This room felt impossible. I tried over and over again, but I couldn't do it. I needed to be better prepared. I had died so many times that I decided to leave it for the time being. So I searched for another melody. But to reach it, I had to do one of the hardest platforming challenges ever. Located in the spinning gear room, I had to wall jump and bounce on top of the actual gears to get higher and higher. But one small mistake meant I had to do it all over again. It drove me insane. After I don't know how many tries, I did it and unlocked a shortcut to never do it again. Moving forward, I arrived at a new arena. I couldn't believe the amount of gauntlets there were. Too many. I hated them. Frustrated again, I took a break and explored other parts of the map instead. That's when I found a new fast travel point, the Grand Bellway. After a lot of patience, I went back to finish the last gauntlet. It was packed with waves of enemies, and at the end, a sort of mini-boss appeared. There was a fast bug with blades that slashed forward. Somehow I managed to kill it. Winning this unlocked a new area, the Whispering Vaults. I bought its map and unlocked the shortcut back to Songclave. Venturing deeper, I found the Psalm Cylinder and I met Vault Keeper Cardinius. He wanted the cylinder. After giving it to him, I got rosaries in return. Later, I came across a platforming puzzle with huge boxes. Attacking them shifted their positions. I wasn't sure if I did it correctly, but I unlocked the shortcut back to the coral chambers. Then I stumbled into a circus-like room. Trobio, with a full show of tricks. I died instantly. Not wanting to risk losing all my rosaries, I fast traveled back to Bone Bottom and bought a mask shard. At least I put the money to good use. I tried the boss again. This was going to be a tough fight. After countless tries, I decided to focus on getting the next damage upgrade for my blade. To do that, I needed pale oil to complete the Pin Master's quest. Solving a puzzle by moving some of the big platforming boxes around unlocked a path. This let me activate a lever and I found the pale oil sitting on a table. Back at Bellhart, I talked to the Pin Master. The quest was complete. He sharpened my blade once again. now stronger, I could maybe stand a better chance against the boss. The pitmaster also mentioned that if I found more oil, I should bring it to him. In the coral chambers, I discovered someone asleep in a restaurant. Slashing my blade woke him up. His name was Loyal Mergwin. Inside his display case was another vial of pale oil owned by his master, the Great Gourmand. To earn it, I needed to gather 5 different ingredients. First on the menu was moss berries too, so I returned to Moss Grotto and finally gathered the last moss berry I needed. Then I brought them to the druid at Moss' home. In addition to the stew, she also gave me a new item called Druid's Eye. I equipped it. Every time I take damage, I'll gain silk as well. Next on the list was vintage nectar. Since it would cost some rosaries to get, I decided to grind some money. I spent a full hour killing mobs over and over and over until I reached 5,000 rosaries. With all the money that I had, I went to Greymore and stopped at halfway home to talk to Crage. He was selling the nectar I needed, but in order to grab it, I needed to take it myself from the cellar down below. I went down and found myself ambushed by red ants, a ninja and a samurai. I managed to kill them both, but the cellar was crawling with enemies. Thankfully, my upgraded weapon made the difference. It was so much easier to cut through them now. Then, something amazing happened. Once the fight ended, I saw how the corpses of the enemies were being carried away by swarms of tiny little ants, disappearing into the ground. It was incredible. But then, a huge enemy appeared. It was the same mini-boss that had destroyed me earlier in the game. We met again, and he killed me instantly. I lost 5,000 rosaries. Luckily, I had my Silk Eater item, so I recovered them easily. Before trying again, I wanted to secure all my money, so I used the fast travel point and returned to Bone Bottom, where I bought a simple key. Then I went to Bellhart and bought the multi-binder, a memory locket, and even a rosary necklace. Next, I donated 400 rosaries at the wish wall and picked up a new quest called My Missing Brother. A bug named Pale had vanished somewhere in Greymore. Lastly, I handed my relics to the relic seeker for extra money and bought as many necklaces as I could back at Bellhart, 18 in total. With that done, I spoke to New at halfway home. She congratulated me for completing the journal. Creepy little bug. She gave me a reward, a pouch upgrade for my tools. Nice. Then I went back down into the cellar. The enemies had reset, so I had to clear everything again. When the big guy returned, I played patiently, dodging his combos and watching carefully for his jumping attack over and over. Combo, dodge, jump. Finally, he went down. With the ants defeated, the nectar revealed itself. I grabbed it. Now only 3 ingredients remained. When I came back up, I told Crage he had an ant problem. Turns out he hadn't forgotten to mention it. He actually took advantage of me, letting me deal with it for him. Next, I needed the courier's rasher. At Bellhart, I asked the courier tip, but he didn't have it. His brother Pale did. Problem was, Pale was the missing courier, so I had to find him first. I tracked his trail through Greymore, bouncing on enemies and balloons until I reached the top right, into Sinner's Road. Following the tracks, I found him being harassed by insects. I killed them and completing the quest. Pale was safe. Back at the town, the brothers were together again. They were pretty cute. I asked about the courier's rasher. They prepared it for me, but there was a catch. Its flavor turned foul quickly, so I had to deliver it myself to the Citadel without using fast travel and dodging every enemy on the way. I started the challenge. The first run went horribly. A falling rock hit me. Then spikes finished me off. The rasher was destroyed. I tried again and failed in the blaster steps. I tried again and failed again. This challenge was brutal. I needed something to help me. So I headed back to the far fields. Running all the way to the bottom right, I reached the locked door I had found earlier but couldn't open. With my new melody, I was now able to unlock it. Inside was a secret room with a bench. I had to sprint all the way right, and at the end, I found the Silk Speed Anklets, an item that greatly increased sprint speed. Paired with the Flea brew, the effect was insane. I was unbelievably fast. Sprinting to the end again unlocked unlocked the path down to another secret area, where I discovered a rune harp, another item. Exploring further, I used my ring and climbing skill to reach a hidden hut. I had to glide carefully between spikes all the way. At the bottom, there was a gauntlet. The entire floor was lava. Platforms sank into it when stepped on. Fighting enemies in mid-air while everything collapsed was hell. I died over and over again. This was nearly impossible. I realized what I needed to make this doable: the double jump, both for the Courier's quest and this cursed gauntlet. It was essential. To unlock the double jump, I traveled to the slab. From the fast travel station, I went left and reached the cold region of Mount Fae. Using my claw line, I crossed gaps and came across Chakra. I bought the local map from her along with markers. I even placed one to remind myself of the gauntlet I had failed earlier. The entire region was a brutal platforming challenge. The cold itself drained my health, so I needed to be fast. And the only way to survive was standing inside protective energy fields scattered along the path. Between the spikes and the tight jumps, I died. I found Silk to heal at one point, but the enemies here were cruel. Every mistake sent me back to the last bench. Dying meant restarting entire sections. Over and over again, I failed, but the repetition was actually good practice. Finally, after countless attempts, I reached the warm room with a fire. A sign pointed downward to a bench, but the path was blocked. Dropping lower, I smashed through a hidden wall that led me to the bench. But it cost 90 rosaries. Thankfully, I had enough necklaces stored. I paid, rested, and recovered. But I wasn't nowhere near done. Mount Fae had only just begun. This was going to be one of the hardest sections I ever played. I pushed onward, climbing higher into the frozen wasteland. The cold kept draining my health. I failed time and time again, but after many attempts, I finally did it. At the top of the mountain, I played my needle. I gained a new skill, the Fade Down Cloak. Now I could double jump. When I woke up, the bird was perched right next to me. Thanks to the wings I had earned, I no longer took cold damage either. The new skill was incredible. I headed west, sliding down slopes, until I found a hut. Inside was the mask maker. He told me I already had a mask and he could not help me. They all deserve the face. A chance to be, to exist, a face is needed, he said. I took a swing at him and his mask dropped to the ground, but there was nothing else to do here. Moving on, I discovered a hidden crystal cave. The crystals regenerated as I struck them, and inside, I rescued a trapped Flea. It was time to attempt the Courier quest again. I was faster now, more prepared, but...
Dale! Buah! Tío! Dale, hijo de... No!
I died. A lot. The Courier quest was unbelievably hard. Easily the hardest thing I've ever done in the game. I just couldn't do it. I gave up. Instead, I went to the Citadel to explore. At one point, I even found a shower of sorts. Next to it, there was a hidden room. I went through a long section filled with hot vapor traps and eventually ended up at the Citadel's spa. To my surprise, Sherma, the singing lady, was there. I jumped into the water and it held me and restored my silk. After all the stress of the Courier quest, it was a nice relaxing moment. Heading west, I reached the new gauntlet. Amazingly, I survived it on my first try. Afterwards, I unlocked a new fast travel point. It connected back to the coral chambers, but the most important discovery was a lever. Pulling it unlocked a gate that created a shortcut I could use for the Courier's quest. This time, I tried a different strategy. Starting from the end goal, the restaurant, I killed every single enemy I came across. Through the spa, all the way to the Citadel, the desert, every single area, until I reached Bellhart to leave my route as clean as possible. Lo and behold, I finally did it. I delivered the Courier's rusher. Finally! To find the next ingredient, I needed to reach a new area through the blaster steps, all the way west. There, I came across New, rummaging through a backpack. We made some music together. From there, I returned to the Pinstress location. Now I could finally hang from the rings thanks to the Harpoon ability. After a long climb and platforming sequence, I reached the sands of Kora, a new area. Here I hit some glowing spheres that caused some roots and platforms to grow. I had to be quick before they crumbled away. At one point, I found a memory locket, but I came across a new enemy that had a drill for a nose. It shot projectiles that bounced all over. Really annoying. Taking the right path, I rescued a Flea, and it turned out to be a shortcut back to Grindel, the merchant bug. I broke some rosary necklaces to buy a crafting kit, a spool fragment, and the thief's mark. With it, I earned extra rosaries from enemies, but could lose some when taking damage. Exploring deeper, I found an elevator leading down to the blasted steps, a shortcut. Before using it, I rested at the bench nearby, where I also picked up another simple key. I continued to the west, where I freed another Flea and stumbled upon Chakra. I bought the new map and also the Ventrica pins, so I could finally see the transport stations on my map. She spoke of a tower above, saying the tribe there had a power to rival even the Citadel. Trying to climb, I came across a bridge. I needed to approach it from the other side. Going north from Chakra's location, I discovered a hidden entrance, but the area was packed with spikes. I died multiple times, but after countless attempts, I finally pushed through. At the end, I saw a light and found the crust nut. Only one last ingredient remained. I went to Sinner's Road. Once there, I used a simple key to free the Green Prince. Climbing higher, I tried to activate a resting spot by paying some rosaries. The structure raised, but it got stuck. I tried again, but it didn't work. I swung at it, but to no avail. Turns out there was a hidden path on the top left corner of the cave. After a platforming section avoiding some spiky swings, I was able to break some roots, which liberated the mechanism for the resting spot to raise properly. Finally, I was able to use the bench. Chakra was here too, selling the Sinner's Rose map, but I had no money left. Couldn't believe how quickly I was running out of rosaries in this game. With the Thief's Mark, I granted enough rosaries to be able to afford the map from Chakra. I had to fight Macroachers deeper into the area. They destroyed me. For a quest, I needed to hunt 10 of them and gather their guts. So I went back farming roach guts until I had enough. At the end of the section, my double jump let me climb higher through a claustrophobic passage, and I activated a lever that opened the cellar. Then, another that unlocked the door. It seemed to be a shortcut. For the right, I found the kitchen. Flies bustled in the background. Things hung from the ceiling, and a gong sat in the middle of the room. I struck it. Then, the flies leapt from the background, knives in hand. After I killed them, a boss appeared. Chef Ulgoli. He was a huge fat bug flying around with a spoon. His main attack was smashing the ground, releasing goo that infected me. I died when he literally sat on me. On my second try, I got a better hang of the fight. The goo was the real danger. It infected my silk, so I couldn't heal. Even if I tried, my health didn't restore. That's how I died again. The trick for this fight was to stay on the ground when he smashed the floor, to not panic. Then swing right after his attack, between moves, baiting his melee attack. When he jumped sideways and aimed his butt at me, evading let me punish him. That was the key. By sticking to that, I was able to beat him. He dropped the pickled McMaggot, the final ingredient I needed. Moving forward, I ended up finding a hidden entrance in the upper left wall, which led me to a new area, the Mists. The ghost of a woman screamed and rushed at me, grabbing me and draining my health. She phased through the platforms, moving really fast. At first, I thought I wasn't able to damage her. A second specter appeared and I ended up dying. But that wasn't all. Each section in this area repeats itself endlessly. I was trapped in an infinite loop. After spending so much time wandering around, I did some research online and learned that I actually had to play a melody near the butterflies, so they would guide me to the right place. I also realized I could actually defeat the specters. Things got much more manageable thanks to that, though I still died. I got really frustrated and tried another route in Sinner's Road. Going to the right this time, I reached a gate and freed a Flea in a room full of macroaches. Heading down and right, I killed more until something strange happened. The area shifted and suddenly I could rest at a bench. After that, a new character appeared, Styx, a spider-like bug. He told me I was small but deadly and that he wanted to serve me. He promised to grow something for me while I was away, asking me to return later. Climbing up, I broke a hidden wall and entered a new zone, Bilewater. The first trap smacked me on the face. The whole place was disgusting. Traps everywhere, poisonous water, maggots, and every enemy exploding on death. My health dropped to 1 point. I hated it already. Thieves even tried to steal my money, but I killed them and rescued a flea hiding nearby. Later, I slipped into the toxic water. I hated that too. Despite the misery, I pushed forward. Finally, after endless traps, fighting, and platforming, I found Chakra. The bad news, I didn't have enough money for the map. Worse, enemies here didn't even drop rosaries. Grinding would be nearly impossible. Still, I followed the signs to the west, hoping for a fast travel point. Smashing a hidden wall sent me back into the mist. I was so confused. I turned back and found the real station, but it cost 120 rosaries. So expensive, and I had none. Furious, I left. Back with Styx, he showed me what he had grown. Turns out he made a silk eater. At least that was something. I finally returned to Loyal Mergwyn with all the ingredients. The meal was disgusting, but I earned the pale oil, the item I needed for my third needle upgrade. Back at Bellhart, I gave it to Penmaster Pliny, but he demanded 500 rosaries for the sharpening. I needed to grind, so I went to the Citadel. While exploring the high halls, I discovered a secret zone. Breaking a wall revealed what looked like a sewage area. Inside, I spotted an item I couldn't reach at first, but after some careful platforming, I grabbed it. It was a psalm cylinder, nothing too crazy. Continuing left, I found a spinning wheel with rings I could grab. It was stressful, but at the end of it, I reached a strange workbench. Apparently, I could construct something there if I had a craft metal. Unfortunately, I didn't, so I would need to return later. In the meantime, I killed enemies until I had over 500 rosaries. Back with the Penmaster, I finally sharpened my blade again.
Wellianis.
With my new upgrade, I went back to face Trobio. That fight drove me insane. The bouncing projectiles were the worst part, completely overwhelming me. I died a lot. Somehow, I managed to push through and even reached phase 2. And then, by some miracle, I won. He actually pretended to be dead, but if I left and came back, I could actually catch him faking it. He dropped a new item called Claw Mirror. After that, I activated a lever that dropped a bridge, connecting areas together. Another lever triggered an elevator, which brought me down. At the bottom, I opened the door to the left. This led to the cauldron. With my sharpened needle, I was finally able to hunt the tall bugs, the grand reeds. Before, they terrified me. I always ran away. Now, I could kill them, and they dropped a solid amount of money. Then, I decided to try the gauntlet again, the one that had destroyed me before. This time I got so far, so far, but it was absurd, easily the most unfair fight in the game. It felt like there were over 10 waves or something, and at the end, not one, but 2 of the giant brutes spawned. There was no way. Fighting one of them was already tough. Fighting 2 at once was absolutely unfair. So instead, I searched for craft metal. I went to Greymore and discovered the secret area. Inside, I fought a new creature that hurled fire spells. It destroyed me instantly. When I returned, I escaped rather than fight, and I managed to grab what I needed. Back to the Citadel, I pushed some sort of cart and used it to jump into another secret area at the top. Going inside, the place was full of spider webs, with creatures lurking in the background. I had fought them before, but this time the room had a haunting sound. Suddenly, I was jump scared. I ran, jumping into another car to escape upwards. I barely survived, with only 1 point of health remaining. I managed to arrive into a room full of thick silk. I destroyed it all. The eerie sound stopped, and when I went back down, all the weird spider enemies were dead. I got rid of them for good. Now they wouldn't respawn again. With that done, I came across the Green Prince. I wondered what his true purpose was. Finally, I returned to the workbench. With the craft metal, I constructed a new tool, the cogfly, my own flying companions. They followed me around, attacking enemies automatically. They were powerful enough to take down even the big guys I used to run from. This was insane, a whole other level. Next, I tracked the missing merchant through the coral chambers. Following trails and defeating enemies, I eventually found her hiding. With the mission complete, Jubilana appeared back at the settlement, near the wish wall. Thanks to this, I bought the Ascendant's grip. This tool let me cling to walls indefinitely. Later, I saw the Green Prince again. He stood over the corpse of one of the Clockwork dancers I defeated. The prince revealed I had completed his wish. He murdered the dancers, calling their performance the last free act of his partner. I told him their souls were finally free from the shell of iron. With my new wall cling ability, I returned to the dreaded gauntlet. This time, I was gonna play it smart. Beyond the gauntlet, I found someone groaning in pain. He introduced himself as the conductor, Ballador. He apologized for not standing to greet me. After ages spent sickly, he was too weak to rise from his bedchamber. He hoped the Citadel had shown me the courtesy a devout bug deserved. Then I played my needle. A new song flowed through me, the conductor's melody. Ballador told me to keep it safe. I was the last to receive it. My objective was updated. Now I needed the songs of the architects and the vault keepers. In search of the next melody, I dropped down through the Clockwork area. The platforming here was brutal. On my third attempt, I finally reached the top and unlocked the shortcut back to the bench. Deeper inside, I clung to a ring and opened another path upward. This section was far worse than what came before. Enemies swarmed me, but my robots took care of them while I stayed safe. They were a lifesaver. Eventually, I reached the end, a room with 4 towers. Each had a musical notes etched into them. It was a puzzle. I had to align the notes correctly to lower each tower. As they descended, statues were revealed. When all 4 were complete, a platform rose from the ground. I jumped on it. I learned the architect's melody. Now only one remained, the vault keepers. Heading towards the Whispering Vaults, I took the elevator southeast. The caverns were filled with spikes. At one point, a bug hidden in the ceiling dropped and shredded me with its blades. Once I recovered my silk, I broke through the wood in the top right corner and heard something. It sounded like an organ playing chords. Each blast was a strong burst of air that I had to dodge. After clearing it, I pressed the button that opened the door, revealing an item, a sacred cylinder. The description read, "To learn the melody upon the cylinder will require a work working listening device. I knew exactly who had one, the keeper in the vaults above. I visited Cardenius and gave him the item. And with that, I had learned all 3 melodies. Before moving forward, I returned to Bellhart, bought some rosary necklaces, securing my money. Then, I visited the 3 huge statues. Pilgrim who would hold our song within your shell, rise above. At the top was Lace. Again, her strikes were lightning fast, her parries brutal. I tried my best, but I was defeated again and again. Frustrated with the fight, I decided to take a break and explore. I went to Wormways and dropped down into the lower section. To the right, I broke through a wall that led me out of the zone, until I stumbled across a creepy looking hut. It was the Chapel of the Wanderer. After defeating a fairly simple gauntlet, I continued deeper and claimed the Wanderer's Crest. This changed my entire moveset. My strikes were quicker but shorter, and most importantly, my downward strike in mid-air was much easier to use. This would come in handy for the boss fight. Back in Bombardum, I picked up new quests. One required hunting flint beetles, with a memory locket as the reward. Tracking them through the Marrow, I followed their trails and eventually killed them, one by one. Along the way, I fought another gauntlet and earned a memory locket from it too. With all 3 flint gems gathered, I returned to the Wishful and completed the mission. The reward was another memory locket. This let me expand my crest once more, enough to equip the injector band, completing my healing items setup. Now I was ready. I went back to Lace. This time, everything was different. The Wanderer's Crest made the fight much more manageable. I got all the way to phase 3, pogoing constantly, being patient, baiting her attacks, and punishing when she overextended. Defense, patience, and timing were the key. And finally, I won. Lace congratulated me. She said she was a wasting existence, only a husk with no life, cruelly shaped into a child. She told me to climb up, that had earned my audience with the divine, the Holy Mother who made her. She knelt, then collapsed to the ground. I was back in the boss arena. Lace's body laid lifeless. My objective updated. I needed to confront the one haunting the lands of Farlum. The elevator ahead was locked, but a door opened on the right. Inside, I discovered a new zone called the Cradle. Before pressing forward, I checked another door and found it connected to the Terminus Ventrica station I had seen before. I rested on its bench, preparing for what was ahead. As I walked through the place, I saw prison cages, the same shells where I had been imprisoned at the beginning. The entire area was buried in webs and dust, everything broken and dark. You could hear a pulsating sound in the ambience. I found the map of the cradle. From here, I began climbing higher and higher, hitting levers, bouncing off spikes, using platforms to elevate myself. In the background, I could see it, a massive sphere of silk. That was the source of the pulsating sound.
Got him up!
It was Grandmother Silk. She was enormous, covering the entire screen, attacking with floating blades that slashed from the air. I died almost instantly. I needed to get stronger, find as many upgrades as possible. Back in Bellhart, I spoke to Pavo. In recognition of my efforts, he gave me a gift, a bell home of my own residence. He handed me a key. I climbed up and stepped inside. I had my own bed, my own space. I could rest here. It was actually pretty nice. After that, I spoke to the shopkeeper. She welcomed me as their new resident. She even had new furniture to sell. Desks, gleam lights, paint. I didn't have the rosaries for it though. Next, I decided to clear all the missions from the wish walls I hadn't completed. The first was silver bells. I needed to collect them around Bellhart. So I searched the area, grabbing bells one by one. At the beast station, I discovered a hidden path leading to the lower parts of Bellhart. There, I met the Bell Hermit, though he wanted nothing to do with me. The place was confusing, almost like a labyrinth, but after a while, I managed to get all the bells. I returned to town and got a necklace as a reward. Then I went to the Citadel to hunt choir bugs for their fine pins. It was pretty easy. I got another necklace at Songclave for it. I also donated 300 rosaries to complete another wish. In Greymore, I hunted birds for rag pelts. Along the way, I liberated another flea trapped in a jar. Once I had enough pelts, I returned to halfway home and gave them to Craig. He was grateful and expanded my crafting kit. Next, in Sinner's Road, I gathered more roach guts. My little robot companions were the key here. Once I had enough, I talked to Kroll and Benjen. They rewarded me with a new tool, tacks. They were small pins that could be scattered on the ground. They would be very useful later. The final quest on my list was the Terrible Tyrant. I needed to hunt the Skull Tyrant at the Marrow. On my way back to halfway home, I passed by the scarecrow Craig had built. No birds were around anymore. Nice detail. Heading to the deep docks, I searched for a bench and met a new character, Lottie. He challenged me to a test of skill. For 25 rosaries, he gave me throwing pins I had to land at a moving target. If I hit it 15 times, I would win the prize. It wasn't too hard, although you could only miss 3 times. The target kept moving in more complicated patterns as time went on. It took me around 3 tries, but I did it. My reward was an expansion for my tool pouch. Not bad. Lottie said if I hit the target 25 times, I could earn rosaries, but I didn't want to waste money and time on it. Also, it didn't count towards the 100% completion, so I moved on. Close by, I discovered a new tool, the Straith Pin. They worked exactly like the ones used in the challenge. After going through a maze of tunnels packed with spikes, enemies, and traps, I finally found the Skull Tyrant. Thanks to my robot friends and my tools, the boss itself turned out to be pretty easy. The monster dropped the crown fragment. I then went straight to Bone Bottom's wishful and turned it in. I got another necklace. Rewards were sometimes pretty underwhelming. Next, I donated 300 shards, finishing all Bone Bottom wishes, at least for the moment. Back in Songclave, I found Sherma, the singing lady. She was resting, saying she would help her brothers in need. Together, we sang. I also ran into Garmon and Zaza again. At the wishful, a new quest appeared, Cloaks of the Choir. I hunted choir bugs until I collected the white cloaks needed. Completing the quest rewarded me with, guess what, another necklace. The next quest was called Balm for the Wounded, also from Sherma. She wanted to heal the sick and asked me to help her descend into the White Word for supplies. I accepted. Before leaving, I bought a simple key from the merchant and took the elevator down. I followed Sherma's tracks through the dangerous area until I found her, trembling and frightened. She had found the healing supplies, but the way back had collapsed. She heard moaning in the dark, and then we were ambushed. With the help of my tools, I fought off the attackers. Sherma apologized for leading me into such danger, but I told her to take care of herself. She promised to deliver the supplies to the pilgrims above. The mission was complete. She gave me a spool fragment, raising my skill capacity again. Back at Songclave, Sherma was safe, easing the suffering of everyone with her supplies. Next wish required a donation of 500 rosaries. I broke a few necklaces in my inventory and had enough to complete it. Then I spoke with the flea master Mushka. Since I had rescued so many fleas, he was thrilled and said we needed to travel together. Once we arrived at the Grand Gate, I got another spool fragment. Right now, I'm trying to fulfill all the requirements to unlock Act 3. If I go and beat Grandmother Silk right now, I will just finish Act 2 and get a bad ending. Because there are things I still needed to do. Completing them would let me begin Act 3. My next task was to buy all the maps from Chakra and rescue at least 25 fleas. First stop, Hunter's March. To get the map, I had to survive a gauntlet I hated at the start of the game. The one with the ninja and flying ant enemies that gave me so much trouble. But now, much stronger, it was a piece of cake. I cleared it easily, found Chakra, and bought both the Hunter's March map and the Vile Water map. Next, I went to sit on a bench. What a game. Going left, I found a hidden thing to deactivate the trap. After that, I could finally rest safely. Climbing higher, I discovered another hidden entrance, which led me to a new item, the Fractured Mask. It worked as one extra life when everything goes wrong. It was pretty useful. After defeating a big brute and a flying enemy, I climbed all the way to the top of the area, where I found a pile of rosaries and a new tool, the Curved Claw, basically a boomerang I could equip. Continuing to the far right, I met a new character, Gilly. She was camouflaged in grass and wasn't happy I had found her. She told me about the last wish of her father, studying these wild caves and the statue nearby. She even sang with me when I played a melody, making a heartbreaking song about her father, his wish, and her mission to uncover the land's secrets. With all the maps done, I turned my focus to rescuing the fleas. But first, there was another boss in Hunter's March, one that many people hate. After grabbing a memory locket, I entered the Chapel of the Beast. The place was filled with spikes everywhere. It was brutal to traverse. After a few tries, I finally reached the boss arena. The savage beastfly. The thing smashed itself against the ground and walls, even summoned spiky monsters. But to my surprise, I killed it fairly easily, probably because of all my upgrades and tools. The thing was a breeze to fight. When it fell, a door opened. I unlocked a new Crest, the Beast. This changed my entire combat style. My attacks turned into Wolverine-style slashes. My downward slash became a spinning strike, and my charge attack was huge. The movements felt wild and aggressive. Most importantly, I could no longer heal in the normal way. When binding, I entered a mode where striking enemies restored my health. I wasn't really sold on the downward strike and the healing ability though, so I switched to the Reaper Crest for the time being. Back at the Citadel, I found a breakable section going up that led me into a new area, the Memorium. After fighting a huge beetle that rolled in mid-air throwing projectiles, I bought the map of the zone. Exploring further, I ended up in another new area called the Putrefied Ducts. This was crucial for unlocking Act 3. The place was full of that murky water red with maggots. I died instantly to a gigantic worm-like creature that one-shot me. Respawning back at the Memorium, I decided to explore it further before returning to the ducts. The whole place was overgrown with plants and bugs, very different from the rest of the Citadel. Suddenly, a massive beast tore through the wall. After fighting it, I checked the journal and learned it was called a Crossed Crag. It was an experiment, a coral hulk bred to immense size. Pressing forward, I found messages that read, "Containment fails. Memory lost." Clearly, these monsters were the result of awful experiments. Smashing a glass wall brought me into a room with strange electrical plants. Dodging them, I reached the room that gave me goosebumps. In the background were bugs hanging like trophies, and others trapped in tubes for experiments. At the end, I found the Materium, tubes and receptacles built for the storing, recording, and research of various materials. This thing could be assembled at my home. After unlocking the fast travel system for the Memorium, I continued climbing higher. Then I discovered a massive flea trapped in a cage. Freeing it triggered some sort of mini boss fight. Once I beat it, it roared and just flew away. Deeper in, I solved another musical puzzle, larger than the last. Completing it rewarded me with another cold hard piece. Now I had 2 in total. I returned to the Putrefied Ducts. This time I killed the giant worm. The ducts were hell. Some kind of weird plant hanging from the ceiling trapped me with their tongues and killed me instantly. After retrieving my silk, I pushed on and finally reached the fast travel point. The bad news was that I didn't have enough groceries, not even for the bench. At one point, I had to actually let one of those tongue plants grab me. It carried me upward, revealing a new path. There, I found the map of the putrefied ducts. Further in, I was jump-scared again by a massive worm. Barely surviving, I grabbed a new item, the key of the apostate. Supposedly, it opened the way to certain cells and passages of this lab. Finally, I discovered the hut with the bench and a new character, the Huntress. She gave me a quest called Brood Feast, asking me to collect organs of various kinds, seared, shredded, and skewered. Doing some research online, I needed the flint slate to collect seared organs and the clockwork wheel for shredded ones. Then I found a hidden passage full of groceries and even a shortcut. That let me pay for the nearby fast travel point. My little beast buddy came to the rescue. Here I realized he imitated me when I move, wiggling from side to side. So cute. I didn't yet have enough groceries to unlock the bench, but at least the fast travel station was active. Continuing to the right, I discovered a new item. This one repelled maggots, the murky water. Later, one of those tongue plants grabbed me and carried me into a new hidden zone packed with spikes. The section was brutal. I had to purposely let myself get caught, then free myself at just the right time to glide away before hitting the spikes again and again. Trap, jump, glide, repeat. It was really stressful, but at the end of it, I met a new character, Vogue. She was a flea, but scarred, carrying a bone weapon, and looking far more battle-worn. I asked if she would join the others, and she agreed. Taking a shortcut, I dropped straight back to the fast travel point. From there, I went to the Flea caravan. Turns out Vogue was able to share the locations of the remaining lost fleas with me, but for a price. A pretty high price, by the way. I needed to get grinding. After farming a lot of enemies at the Citadel for a while, I gathered over 2,000 rosaries. Before visiting the fleas, I checked the Songclave wish wall. A new mission was posted. Our dear merchant left to scavenge treasures from the Citadel's memoriam. She's been gone far too long. Please make sure she's safe. Before looking for Jubilana, I went back to the caravan and bought every single map Vogue offered. Sure enough, all the remaining flea locations appeared marked on my map. It was incredibly helpful. Then I went to the memoriam to rescue the missing merchant. Following her tracks, I even jumped out from the balcony to keep the trail. She was under attack by swarms of bat-like creatures. Waves of them attacked us, but eventually I managed to defeat them all. Jubilana was surprised when I told her the pilgrims were worried about her. She didn't expect that. She thanked me and the quest was complete. Back at Songclave, she had returned with new goods for sale, including something called spider strings, which amplified my music. I wasn't sure how useful that was, but it sounded interesting. Remembering the materium I had collected before, I returned to my Bell home. At the wish wall, I saw 2 new quests, the savage beasts and a mission from Chakra. She had caught the fresh scent of her master in the swamps beside the Citadel and wanted me to meet her there. At my home, I assembled the materium. It displayed all the relics and cylinders I had collected so far. I also decided to decorate. I bought a desk, a gleam light, and bell lacquer to repaint my house. At first, the color didn't seem finished, but after a quick rest, the paint was done. It looked pretty nice. My Bell home was starting to feel like a place of my own. The next thing I wanted to do was help Chakra with her quest. I tracked her rings through Bywater. Since I hadn't unlocked the fast travel point there, because I didn't have enough money, I had to walk all the way, which was a pain. But eventually, I reached the station, unlocked the bench, and finally had every bellway in Farloom open. Following the tracks was brutal. The path was full of huge enemies spitting goo, endless spikes, and the worst trap bench I've ever seen. I fell into the murky water below, swarming with maggots. This game was pure evil. I pressed on and entered the section where corpses hung in silk from the ceiling. Past more spike traps, I swam through caves where waterfall poured down from above, until I found Chakra. She was standing beside her master's corpse. She explained she had died here, of old age. The water-filled chamber was beautiful, fine place to meet her end. Chakra asked me to join her for the song's ending, so her master's soul could walk beyond her shell. the mission was complete. As a reward, Chakra gave me her rings as a new tool. With that done, I went to hunt the savage beastfly in the far fields. On the way, I found a hidden shortcut to the deep docks, where I was searching for a flea. Hanging from a ring, I triggered the mechanism that opened an entrance. Using a lever, I descended into a secret place. To the right was a spool fragment, but it was locked behind the door. After a tricky puzzle with explosive rocks and spikes, I reached it. While looking for the lost flea, I got trapped in a gauntlet. The enemies rained the damage non-stop. It was a nightmare. Frustrated, I fast traveled to the deep docks, where I found another hidden entrance to the left. There, I rescued a flea. Finally, I found the savage beastfly, but this time, it destroyed me. I had no tools, no shards, and no rosaries left. Completely broke, I decided to grind resources back at the Citadel before trying again. Once I had everything ready, I gave it another try, but I was annihilated. The beginning of the boss fight was fine. The important thing was to learn its pattern, when to jump, when to stand still, and when to move to the side. It was all about getting the rhythm down. But when it summoned the minions, that was absolute nonsense. That's when the fight becomes impossible. Their projectiles even left burning fire on the platforms, and when there were 2 summons, it was pure chaos. The key was to prioritize the minions as soon as they spawned. They are the real threat. The easiest way to handle them was with projectile tools. I used the 3-fold pin for this fight. When the platforms disappear and it's only lava, you need to pogo jump constantly to stay safe. With patience and a bit of luck, I was finally able to win. The beast dropped the horn fragment. I turned in the wish back at the town, getting a health fragment as a reward. Next, I went to Greymore to search for more lost fleas. There, I came across a bell home. I called out, and a voice answered, asking who was bothering. I called again, and the voice said it wouldn't open unless I brought a worthy specimen with something truly nasty inside them. Interesting. Heading upward, I found a secret passage behind a breakable wall. Inside was a table covered with cloth and incendiary materials. The description said these could be fashioned into an explosive weapon, but only if I had a craft metal, which I didn't, so I left the marker on my map to return later. Through the entrance of the wisp thicket, I reached the top of the tower in Greymore. There, I found another lost flea. Then I went to Wormways to track another. Breaking a wall revealed a hidden spike-filled passage. At the end, I found a bug carrying a flea in its beak. Poor little guy. I killed the bug and liberated the flea. Back at the Citadel, I kept searching. One flea was reachable only by activating a fan and running its current upward. Another was locked inside a cage. I broke it open and freed it. On the way for the next, I bought a spool fragment from the shopkeeper at Songclave. I continued on rescuing fleas, one after the other. Exploring, I found a locked door marked apostate. Using the key, I opened it and pushed further inside. After more exploration, I found yet another flea locked inside a prison cell. There were so many fleas to rescue. Returning to the master, Mushka, he asked if I had found a place appropriate for travel. I told him that if I came across a cave both wide and free, I would let him know. To find a safe place for the fleas, I went all the way east through the putrefied ducts. At the end, I discovered a huge lake. I could actually swim in it. It was beautiful, wide and calm, perfect for them. I played a melody in front of a harp of sorts and something appeared. Inspecting it, it read, "Sisters spiders, watch these waters flow, cleansing, binding, and silk from shell. Memories of our kingdom calm." The flea master and his caravan sought for caves offering space and safety. This calm lake and shore may prove suitable. I went back to Mushka and told him about the lake. He agreed and said I was the true friend of the fleas. I joined them on their trip. When we arrived, the fleas were overjoyed. As a reward, they added an extra pocket to my tool pouch. This new zone was now called Fleetopia. All the way to the right, I found some craft metal to grab. I thought I had everything to begin Act 3, but I was wrong. When I talked to the Caretaker, he didn't give me the quest needed. So, while doing some research, I figured out the missing step was defeating the boss of the Bilewater area. After traveling there, it was such a pain to maneuver around. Definitely the worst area of the game. At least I found a secret bench hidden behind some breakable walls, around the northeast part of the zone. From there, I pressed on until I reached reached the boss room, but turns out I had to fight through waves of enemies first. This was an absolute nightmare. There was water full of maggots I had to avoid, and I died almost instantly to the explosive darts. The run back was awful too. To prepare for the fight, I equipped the Wrath of Purity. This makes me immune to the maggots, but it's not infinite. I still got infected after dropping into the water a few times. I hated having to defeat so many waves of enemies before the actual boss. At one point, I actually managed to survive to see the big guy itself. Grohl the Great. He killed me instantly. This was going to be impossible. I spent a full hour trying to beat him, dying time and time again. Here's what actually worked for me. For the first enemy wave, those jumping frogs, their projectiles were the biggest threat. The best position to attack them was from down below, or taking a swing just as they surface from the water. For the mosquitoes, just focus on staying away from their blast radius when they die. The swinging spike ball thing, you can just avoid by standing still against the wall. But when Grohl came up, I tried to stay away from him, to the far right or far left. His most dangerous attack was the exploding blobs he threw around. If you dodged that, you can just pogo jump off of him and punish him during his openings. Be careful of his diving attack into the water. It caught me off guard multiple times. Once his phase 2 begins, he starts blasting energy waves. These are easier to dodge, just don't panic. Here I went all in with my tools. I unleashed everything, especially the threefold pins, and I let my robotic friends do as much damage as possible. With patience and some luck, he finally went down. Going left, I entered the hut and found the Seeker's soul. As soon as I picked it up, the body hanging above me shattered into pieces. The description read, a cracked shell containing a soul drawn from a long-deceased bug. For the left, I opened the shortcut by cutting some rope, then climbed all the way up. This path connected a vile haven with the putrefied ducts. Next, I went to the Citadel to talk to the Caretaker. I showed him the soul remnant I found. He said he had known the bug in its prime, braver than most. I hoped this would unlock Act 3, but it didn't. I realized what I was missing. Back at Bone Bottom, there was a new wish to complete, a donation of 440 shards. I cracked open all my bundles, completed the donation, and then it happened. I returned to the Caretaker. He offered a different solution to free the kingdom, a trap, a snare big enough to bring down the monarch of the Citadel. And so I began the quest, Silk and Soul. The plan required gathering power from his family, the maiden's soul from his sister, the hermit's soul from his uncle, and the snare setter, a weapon of the weavers. I went to Bone Bottom to take a quick rest. The school tyrant came out of nowhere. I got absolutely jump scared. Thanks to my tools, I was able to take him down without much problem. This time, for good. The whole town trembled in fear. Poor people. I then traveled west to the chapel, where I talked to the Caretaker's sister. I asked her for power to aid the trap. She gave me the maiden's soul. Next objective was to find his uncle. In Bellhart, beneath the station, I talked to the hermit. He knew of my plan and gave me the hermit's soul. With two in hand, I only needed the snare setter. The Caretaker directed me to Moss Grotto. I reached a sealed door. By playing a melody, I was able to get inside Weavenest Atla. The place was full of webs and darkness. I activated two strange devices, lighting up the area. Inspecting them revealed a rune depicting the nest, a map. Deeper inside, a structure shot me down as a beam of energy. Then I followed the sound of singing. The voice belonged to Eva, a child of the Weavers, but not entirely their kin. Like me, I introduced myself and said I sought a Weaver's tool, a snare. She agreed to guide me. Accepting her insight evolved my Hunter's Crest. Now, repeated strikes built focus, and once full, my needle became deadlier. Interacting again granted me the Vesti Crest, which allowed me to equip an extra tool independent of my crest. Amazing. Continuing west, I found a spool fragment. Then I finally reached the snare setter. I also picked up a rune harp, a relic, and even stumbled into a lava-filled area where I found another health shard. Back at the Caretaker, I handed over everything. The quest, Silk and Soul, was complete. He left to prepare the trap, and my new objective appeared. Scale the Citadel and snare East Monarch in a deadly trap. I was one shard away from more health, so I granted rosaries until I could buy it. I also bought everything left at the shop. The craft metal, the coral commandment, and more. I even expanded my Crest slots for more tools. I was ready. I climbed all the way up to the cradle, where I stumbled upon the Caretaker. He told me I had come a long way, granting wishes, saving bugs. The snare was set above. I told him he and his family had done well, and I would prove his faith in the fight ahead. He urged me to bring my best. Everything was destroyed. Statues loomed in the background, the same ones I had seen when learning the melodies. I pressed on through ruined chambers, smashing beams, dodging spikes, and fighting enemies infused with dark threads. Black energy poured from them when they died. That black goo was awful. After winning the fight, the black threads opened a path further down. Darkness swirled around me again. My steps slowed. The floor broke beneath me, and I plummeted. When I woke, I was beside Sharma, the singing lady. She told me all this was what remained after the great breaking began. Songclave was destroyed. People groaned in pain and sadness. I was alive thanks to some fleeing pilgrims that carried me back here after I passed out. I asked where the Caretaker was. She said he had gone below to confer with his family, leaving her to look after the survivors. I thanked Sharma, told her to stay safe, and sat at the bench, surrounded by grieving pilgrims. Black threads and dark bubbles pulsed in the background. Then a scream echoed. Rocks fell. It was terrifying. Exploring the coral chambers, I found debris blocking the Ventrica station. Swinging at it did nothing. Everywhere was wreckage. In the high halls, I found another station still working. I traveled to the Grand Bellway and called for my beast friend.
Ada!
My friend saved me.
Ada.
They taught me the beastling call. Now I was able to summon the little guys from anywhere, and they would take me to the nearest fast travel station. Together, we returned to the surface. I saw the beast with her children. It was so beautiful. From there, we all traveled to Bone Bottom in search of the Caretaker. But when I arrived, everything was gone. The town was destroyed. Everyone was dead. I went to Grotto, into the chapel. There, I confronted the snail shamans. I called them cowards. They insisted they had only done as I asked. The snare was sprung, the creature consumed. I told them they had miscalculated gravely. The White Knight fell with the mother. The mother resisted the dark to save the child. I told them I needed to descend into the void below and see for myself. I wouldn't stand idle while the kingdom collapsed. They told me the dogs at the top of the Lake of Flame still held the means to descend. My objective updated: to find the way beneath Farldom. At the deep docks, I talked to the Forge Daughter. She said only Ballo could help me. He then explained that at the base of the docks was an old diving bell, perfect for descending, but it needed an operator to remain dockside. He agreed to help, asking me to meet him there. Continuing on, I found a locked door with a simple padlock. I used my simple key to open it. On my way to the diving bell, I stumbled into a new boss fight. Sickness. Lava streams poured from both extremes of the room. I focused on learning his patterns at first, which were pretty simple for the most part. He threw his spinning weapon forward and also did a melee combo from time to time. I wasn't able to make a pogo attack because of his helmet, so I had to dodge and take a normal swing quickly. Things were okay until he started to spawn his summons, which were a pain to deal with, especially when there were multiple at once. Nonetheless, I managed to push through. Things were going well until a new boss joined, Gron. The two brothers fought me at once. I panicked. I wasn't sure what to do. There was so much on screen that I ended up dying. There was so much to track at once. I decided to change my loadout. I equipped the weighted belt and the multi-binder. The runback was brutal. Fortunately, I found a shortcut that made things easier. It was a breakable ceiling. The worst part of this fight wasn't the brothers themselves. It was their summons. Because this was Act 3, the minions were buffed with much more health and damage. Their dark energy attacks shredded me. I died again and again. The trick was to push the summons into the streams of lava to take them out instantly. If that failed, I just used my silk ability to destroy them quickly. The first brother itself was pretty easy to deal with. The weighted belt item helped a lot. It got rid of the knockback and I could attack him without being pushed back into his spinning weapon. When the second brother arrived, I could attack his exploding javelins and break them before they detonated. Doing that made the fight a breeze. Just focus on killing the first brother and then the second. Also, using every tool at your disposal. I was really lucky in my case. At one point, the boss glitched out and was stuck on the top of the screen. I could take some free swings at him. After a while, I managed to finish him. With the fight done, I rested on a bench and continued into the next area. The place was full of magma and massive monsters that spit lava from their backs. They were like enormous adult versions of the creatures from the deep docks. The item that mitigated fire damage was fundamental, the magma bell. Finally, I reached my destination, the old diving bell. I also met Ballo. He said he would guide me down and handed me a key. Everything was ready. Things went horribly wrong. I had to break the door to escape the wreckage. I needed to reach the source of the black threads within the abyss. The place was horrifying. Darkness, spikes, black tentacles in the background. The silence was suffocating. Awful flying things swarmed me, latching onto my head. Then came a massive creature with an elephant-like nose, which killed me in one hit. The area was pure nightmare fuel. The screams echoing through the abyss gave me goosebumps. At one point, I picked up an arcane egg, and further on, instead of water, I saw black goo filled with silhouettes of crawling creatures. Their tentacles destroyed the platforms I stood on, forcing me to jump quickly before being dragged under. It was disgusting. Finally, I reached the bench and a map of the abyss, giving me some orientation. I kept going until I reached the end. Here you lie, monarch, sunk so deep, yet still you cling to life. Then Lace appeared. She said letting me live was her rebellion, denying her mother my strength. She wanted me to rejoice in the collapse, but I refused. I said I would never let another kingdom fail while I still lived. There was still a way to claim the hidden power, the bloom that repels the dark. I would return when I bore the strength to die below and cut this land free of her mother's grasp. Lace vanished and my objective updated. I had to escape the abyss. I first tried crossing the huge dark sea using some bouncing spheres and climbed upward. At the top right, I found a door that opened with my melody, leading to the Weave Nest Absalom. Inside, I obtained an item called Farsight, which could be assembled in my home. After inspecting a statue, I gained a new ability, Silksong, a super jump. The skill was amazing. Using it, I returned all the way where I landed. From here, I used my super jump, Harpoon, and pogo jumping to slowly make my way upwards. This whole section was immense. Slowly, I started to come across magma and lava. I pressed on until one of the most amazing platforming sequences began. At last, I escaped the abyss, emerging back in Farlum at the deep docks. Back in Bellhart, I checked the town. There were survivors, but everyone was mourning. Pavel looked broken, though he was glad to see me. The Wishful had new quests. Dark Hearts, which involved destroying black mounds of husks and bugs corrupting the land. And Fatal Resolve, which involved dueling the Pinstress of Plaster Steps. Pinmaster Pliny's shop was closed. There was a sign saying he had gone to pay his respects in the Great Wood. I then sold the relics for almost 1,000 rosaries to the relic seeker. I also assembled Farsight back at home. This thing revealed the completion percentage in the save menu. By now, I had played around 32 hours and my completion was 59%. I needed to start searching for all remaining collectibles and upgrades. For example, at the top of Bellhart, I used my super jump and found a hidden place with a memory locket. Continuing with the main quest, I went to Bone Bottom to search for the Shamans. But before doing so, I came across some thieves rummaging around. Bastards. Finally, I arrived at the ruined chapel. I told the Shamans about the monarch, sunk deeper than I could descend, and that to cut Farlum free, I would need to plunge below the surface of that lake of liquid. I asked them about the flower that resists the dark, the Everbloom. I had known it in the distant past. My thread still held a faint memory of it. I needed another spell from them to reveal the flower clearly from within my memories. The Shamans began whispering among themselves. They told me it could be done. The spell could be cast, but it required enormous power. I would need to seek out the old hearts of the kingdom, the last successors who still bore their strength. The Shamans promised they would teach me how. I learned the Elegy of the Deep, a new song that will let me draw memories of Farlam's forgotten past. The Shamans mark 3 hearts on my map, one in the sands of Kora, all the way to the top left, another near the Buster Steps, and a third one to the east of the Farfields, in an area I hadn't yet discovered. They said 3 would be needed to construct a spell and reveal the flower within my silk. Using my super jump, I reached the secret area where I bound myself to a massive shell. This gave me the crest of the Shaman. This completely changed my moveset. My swings threw bursts of energy with incredible range, and even my charge strikes were enhanced. On top of that, the crest let me equip up to 3 silk skills at once, though I only had 2 unlocked. Thanks to Farsight back at my home, I could actually track how many skills and items I had left to unlock, and also see my actual completion percentage. Going to the west at Sands of Korak, I reached a boss, the Raging Conchfly. He was back. Now it was alone since I had already killed his partner long ago. He destroyed me. The run back was awful, and worse, I discovered the Shaman Crest had changed my healing. Binding in the air now forced me down into the floor, which got me killed. The key for this fight was bouncing his projectiles back at him, punishing during the huge roar when he summoned minions, and being patient, learning his patterns, pogo jumping, until he finally went down. Continuing left, I entered the tall tower. Inside were statues of armored soldiers, dozens of them, with one larger statue in the center that looked like their leader. At its feet was an item I could grab, the conch cutter. Then, a pulsating sound filled the room. I played the shaman's melody. Everything went black, and I passed out. When I woke, I was in darkness. No light shined above. I used my super jump to reach it. I had arrived at the coral tower. Inside was another gauntlet room. The armored soldiers I had seen as statues before now came alive, wielding blades. After waves of them, smaller conchflies joined the fight. I cleared them all, and the roar signaled the door opening. Proceeding to the right and up, I found yet another gauntlet. This one was even worse. New enemies, fast and difficult to hit. I managed to kill them, but the fight was exhausting and long. Eventually, I died. When I respawned, I was back in front of the statue. Turns out, in order to proceed, I would have to win not only those 2 gauntlets in a row, but 3. Before proceeding, I discovered the hidden bench to the right of the statue, which I used to rest. To switch things up, I tried using the Crest of the Beast to see if I'd fare any better. I didn't. This fight was driving me insane. I tried the gauntlet once more with the Wanderer's Crest and died again.
¿Por qué, boludo, la con...
I got really angry and decided to leave. Then I came across Grendel. He was selling some items. I bought the magnetite dice from him. Its ability was interesting. It could randomly block damage. From there, I traveled to Shellwood, looking for anything that could make me stronger. Inside a hut, I met a new character, Greyroot. She said the rite of the polyp was approaching and she needed a polyp hearts for the ritual. A new mission began. I needed to find 6 hearts, and I already had 2. These area's bugs were unbelievable. Even the smallest insect was infected with the dark thread. Every single one had a special attack that exploded in a huge area. Once I collected everything, I handed it all to Greyroot. She rewarded me with a polyp pouch, a crucial item. It applied a venom to all equipped tools. Continuing on my hunt for items, I went to Greymore, where I crafted a new tool, the Pimpillo, which worked basically as a grenade. Next, I returned to Eva. I told her I hoped to slay the monarch, but the situation had grown complicated, and now all of Farlam was threatened. Still, there was hope. She upgraded my Vesticrest. Moving on, I went to the coral chambers, which were completely destroyed. The dark threads covered everything. Chandeliers had fallen, debris was everywhere, and dead bugs littered the floor. It was awful. I farmed some enemies for materials I needed for the Brood Feast quest. Once I finished harvesting everything, I went to the Putrefied Ducts to talk to the Huntress, but instead, I found her child, Runt. He was so small. He told me his mother had passed. He was happy I brought the meat. This completed the quest. My reward was the Long Claw, which increased the range of my needle attacks. Continuing my search for all the items in the game, I went to the deep docks to gather the flint slate. This temporarily superheated my weapon, letting me deal fire attacks. Next, I traveled to the wisp thickets to fight a new boss, the Father of the Flame. He wasn't a creature exactly, more like a giant scarecrow built of fire. His body had several lanterns, and I had to strike them repeatedly to destroy each arm. The fight was chaotic. Dodging fire while attacking the lanterns was tricky, and as the fight went on, multiple flames appeared at once. I equipped different items to try and survive this. The magma bale helped reduce flame damage, but the most important tool was the Delver's drill. It was perfect for breaking the lanterns. After all of them went down, phase 2 began. The arms fell away and the center burst into flames. At first, I had no idea how to handle it, and I got obliterated. But after a few tries, I realized the key was to pogo jump on the center core. When it burst into flames, just drop to the ground and evade, rinse and repeat. That's how I finally killed him. Defeating the Father of the Flame rewarded me with the Wisp Fire Lantern. Afterward, I went to the Memorium, killed a few enemies, and unlocked the Vault Vessels. These could be thrown like bolas to discharge explosions, or stacked as spears to release columns of energy. At the Whispering Vaults, I solved another musical puzzle. My reward was a third heart piece. With all three combined, I assembled the full thing. I brought it to a chamber containing an automaton locked in a machine. Breaking the glass, I inserted the heart into the chest. Then it came alive. This was the second sentinel. He spoke, saying he awaited commandment. His last task had been to defend the sacred citadel, but since it had fallen, he had nothing left. I gave him no command, so he leapt away into the distance. Exploring the citadel, I later saw him again, fighting bugs, protecting the ruins. At Songclave, the warrior pilgrim even asked about this new champion called the Golden Knight. Everyone praised his efforts. In the cauldron, I bought some items from the 12th architect: the Clockwork wheel, a crafting kit, and the architect's key. 2 other items required craft metal, which I didn't yet have. Using the key, I opened the lock nearby, entering the chapel of the architect. Inside, I claimed the Crest of the architect. This made my blade spin like a drill with each strike. My charge attack was massive, but most importantly, this crest will let me equip 3 tools at once. This was a total game changer. While exploring, I found a craft metal, which let me buy another of the architect's items, but I still needed one more piece for the last one. Through the wisp thicket, I rescued another flea that was stuck. To reach it, I had to go through a really annoying section with big square blocks moving around. Their edges covered in spikes. Somehow I managed to survive it and liberate the flea. Then, in the blaster steps, I found a hidden passage that led to another piece of craft metal. Finally, with enough gathered, I returned to the architect and bought the last item available from her. Back at Shellwood, I saw Chakra fighting. The map maker was actually battling possessed bugs, and she was incredible. She teleported around, striking with lightning fast precision. Afterward, I spoke with her. She said she was defending Bellhart and holding the line. I told her I would finish this, fix this, and put an end to the venom. The next item I found was the long pin. I headed to Weavenest Atla and pushed all the way west through a hidden passage. At the end of the hallway, I found the Moss Mother. She was back, but this time she radiated dark energy. One of her new attacks was dark tentacles bursting out from her body. At one point in the fight, another Moss Mother appeared. They smashed themselves against the ceiling, dropping rocks and summoning little worm minions. With everything happening at once, it was hard to keep up. Avoiding both at once was nearly impossible. Their thrust attacks with their stingers were unpredictable, and when they turned dark, it got even worse. Sometimes it meant the tentacle attack, other times it was the black goo projectile. That goo was nearly unavoidable, but once I learned their pattern, I unloaded everything. Poison flies, long pens, every tool I had. It was barely enough, but it worked. I defeated them both. The reward was an item that increased the speed of silk regeneration when equipped. Exploring Moss Grotto, I found a spool fragment. Then, in the Wormways, I stumbled into an area full of glowing butterfly plants. There, I met a new character, Alchemist Silotol. He wasn't well. Darkness sprouted from within his shell. He asked for help and handed me a quest. Using a new item, the needle vial, I had to find the bots below and charge it with pure plasmium. So I went around piercing notes to charge the vial. I went back to the alchemist and completed the quest. Now I had a permanent new item, the plasmium vial. Using it, it gave me 1 extra health beyond my normal limit. Citadel gave me another mission. This time I had to plunge the needle vial into a plasmified box below. The timing was tricky, but I collected all the blood he needed. Back with him, Citadel was fading fast. Before the end, he gave me the gland from within his shell as a gift. I gained the plasmium gland. With it, crafting new plasmium vials no longer required a reserve. Continuing on, I went to Bellhart searching for more tools. There, inside a hidden room, I found the quick sling. This item doubled the number of tools thrown. This saved my life in the endgame. Next, in the far fields, something strange happened. I heard the sound of a bird. Then, suddenly, an item landed. The Crow summons. Exploring around, I found a room with 4 wooden targets hanging from the ceiling. Using my boomerang, I hit all 4 at once. Then, an ant appeared, but he didn't fight me. Instead, he offered to take my boomerang. I gave it to him and then he disappeared. When I returned to the room later, I found a new item, the curved sickle, essentially an upgraded boomerang. In the blaster steps, I talked to Grindel and bought the snitch pick as well as a Salm cylinder. Back at Songclave, the Wishwall held a new mission. From the second sentinel, he wanted me to meet him at the Citadel High Halls. I accepted and followed the track to his location. Then there he was, waiting. It was time to fight. He had a lot of attacks. On my first attempt, I just tried to observe and memorize his patterns. He jumped, performing aerial strikes. There were so many variations, I wasn't sure what to expect. He was really quick, and each phase ramped up in speed. But if you focus, you can read his tells. When I defeated him, I told him to stand, to be my friend, that there was no need for him to die. He accepted, and the mission was complete. My reward was a new item, Reserve Bind. Afterward, I found a simple key through a hidden path. With it, I returned to the Citadel High Halls and opened the locked gate. Inside, I broke the ceiling, evaded spinning blades, and crawled through ventilation shafts until I found a chest. It didn't hold a tool, just a rosary necklace. Using a lever, I opened another gate, which acted as a shortcut. Then I broke a hidden wall that led to a secret room. At the end, I finally found a new tool, the rosary cannon. Next, I went to Bellhart. I opened the locked door using my melody, leading me to a new zone, Weavenest Merglin, where I discovered a new item, the ruined tool. From there, I traveled all the way to Mount Frey. After breaking a hidden wall next to one of the benches, I smashed through some ice. That dropped a new item, the memory crystal. Later, I went to the Blaster Steps, to the home of the Pinstress. She had left a note saying she had departed to scale Farlum's frigid mount, challenging me to climb Mount Frey for a duel. So, I searched for her. She was lying on the floor. I swung my blade to wake her up, and the duel began. Her moveset was finicky, projectiles flying everywhere, a dash attack I had to avoid, and later, in her second phase, it discharged with a massive area of effect. The few safe windows to attack came when she dashed. I pogoed off from her for damage, but it wasn't easy. I kept trying, over and over, swapping crests constantly. I finally settled on the Reaper crest. Even then, the fight broke me. It was brutal, one of the hardest duels I faced. I did it. For completing the mission, she granted me a new item, the Pin Badge. Back in the sands of Korak, I found a hidden passage going all the way up. It led me to a new area called the Vault Nest. The place was filled with electric plants, and the platforming was insane. Their bursts of electricity did massive damage, and I died a few times just trying to get through. At the end, I fought a new boss, Vault Worm. This one was surprisingly easy. It was a tentacle-like creature that descended from the ceiling. All I had to do was dodge the electric attacks. Honestly, it was probably the easiest boss in the game so far. When it went down, it dropped the Vault Filament, which gave electric charges to my silk skills. I decided to hunt down the remaining health shards around the map. What I hated most in Act 3 was that the gauntlet rooms were literally impossible. Every creature was buffed with dark energy, and the game heavily punishes you if you didn't do everything back in Act 2. I stumbled across an interior I could enter. Inside was a bench and a new character, Sprint Master Swift. He challenged me to a race. I accepted. The first one was a piece of cake. It consisted of just 3 laps around the circuit. Hearing him moan and pant while running made it even funnier. Then came the second race. This one had more jumping and bouncing around, a little trickier, but I still won. Finally, the grand finale, the last race. This one was actually challenging. The curse had much more verticality, and I failed more times than I would like to admit. Nonetheless, I finally won. The reward was a health shard. I was close to the zone to claim the Heart of the Wild. Once there, I met someone and told them I sought their power. To save these lands, to break them free from the fatal sickness, born of thread and void. The beast seemed sick, old. I asked her to remember how it once was. Then I played a melody, and everything went black. It felt like I was about to step into an arena. I went inside, but in the background there was a performance. Someone was singing and dancing, and I had the option to challenge her. First came a gauntlet of enemy waves, one after the other, and at the end I had to face her. Scar Singer Carmelita, a new boss. Her jumping attack transformed her into a spinning ball of spikes that crushed me against the walls. It was brutal. I died time and time again to her. I got so frustrated that I just decided to continue searching for the lost fleas, one after the other. Then, at Bywater, I found something strange, a twisted bud. Checking my inventory, things sounded like a crying baby. This will be important later. I continued searching for the remaining collectibles, until, after exploring the mists, I encountered a new boss, Phantom. She threw her staff forward and leapt across the arena. On the second try, I managed to win, thanks to my tools. The ending was incredible. I had to parry her final attack, and it all ended with a huge slow motion scene. My reward was a new silk skill, Cross Stitch. This let me weave silk around the needle to deflect enemy attacks and instantly strike back. At this point, only one flea was left to rescue, and of course it had to be the worst one. The one in the deep docks, behind that awful gauntlet room, had never been able to clear. I dreaded it. I did it. I actually did it. The key was using the Architect's Crest. With it, I was able to unleash everything I had. And I finally rescued the last flea. I went to Fleetopia to visit Flea Master Mushka. He had one last gift for me, the Egg of Flealia. This decreases the cost of silk skills while health was full. With all the fleas here, we sang all together. Next, I went to the bird area, where I handed over the cross summons item. This let me get inside an arena, the Court of Cross. I had to survive a gauntlet of endless birds, until the father appeared. But the boss fight was impossible. Once again, the summons were the problem here. I couldn't keep up. I needed something to be stronger. So, I focused on getting my last nail upgrade. At Bellhart, I picked up some quests. One of them was called Ecstasy of the End. The Fleas had summoned me back to Fleetopia. I accepted. Mushka explained he wanted one more favor, a final act, the Festival of the Flea. One last celebration before the darkness swallowed everything. The whole place was decorated with lights. It was so wholesome. The first game was Flea Juggle. I had to strike fleas upward and keep them airborne. Next was Flea Dodge. I had to survive on platforms while avoiding incoming fleas. It seemed simple, but the difficult part came when the platforms started collapsing. What drove me insane was the giant fly that destroyed everything. I kept trying and losing until I managed to survive for 72 seconds, becoming the champion once more. The last game was Flea Bounce. I had to leap and keep bouncing on fleas flying past. Here, I screamed and raged so much, but after several attempts, I finally hit 43 bounces and won. With all 3 games complete, I was crowned Grand Champion of the festival. The ceremony began, everyone gathered round, and I struck the great effigy like a piñata. Rosaries fell everywhere, and a special item dropped, pale oil. The fleas sang, and the moment was pure joy. Later, I visited Shellwood. After slaying a ton of bugs, I rescued Pin Master Pliny. He bid a final farewell at the cemetery and then returned to Bellhart. Thanks to the oil, I could sharpen my needle one last time, the final blade upgrade. I finally was ready to fight the Claw Father. The key for this, once again, was the Architect Crest. That made me unstoppable. With my needle fully upgraded for maximum damage, the charge attack was insane. I also used the Polyp Heart to poison every tool I had, the tags for consistent chip damage, the conch cutter which bounced around the entire room, hitting everything, and of course the flies. That whole setup was perfect. Together, it won me the fight. In return, I got the Claw Memento. After the battle, I climbed up and found another item, the Claw Bell. Back at my home, I installed it on the exterior of my house. It looked like some sort of nest. Then it was time to defeat Scar Singer Carmelita once and for all. How we hunted, how we sang. My children, I saw you glorious. I did it. I got my reward, the Hunter's Heart. Now, 2 more remain to be claimed. I searched for the next heart around the Grand Gate area. Breaking through hidden walls, one after another, I eventually stumbled upon a new character. He stopped me in my tracks and declared he was charged forever with guarding the sacred shrine beyond. Any who wished to pass had to cross weapons with him. I accepted. A new boss fight began. Shrine Guardian Seth. His moveset was flashy, using his shield like Captain America, throwing it around, leaping into aerial attacks. It was tough to learn, and it took me an hour of attempts. The most dangerous attack was his downward strike, which created a small area of effect explosion. Beyond that, it was all about pogo jumping off of him and slowly learning his patterns. I pressed forward and entered the shrine. Inside, I found the fountain statue. I played my melody and appeared somewhere else. There, I faced a new boss, Nyleth, a flower monster. She was brutal. Since the stage was full of spikes, I used all of my ranged tools and kept the pressure up until I defeated her. We are life. We are growth. What world without us? I had gained the pollen heart. Only one remained. Back in Bellhart, I stopped at my home. The crop bale I had installed granted me rosaries and shards over time, passively. It was amazing. The last place I had to go was the Coral Tower. That place had given me so many headaches, where I had lost again and again, but I needed to try and needed to beat it. Thing is, the tower was still too difficult for me. I couldn't do it, so I decided to continue hunting for health shards to increase my health. While doing so, in the far fields, I got trapped by a new boss, Gur the Outcast. The fight was quite simple. He burrowed underground and then burst out while launching spike traps. As long as I avoided touching those spikes, I could just wait for him to surface and land a few swings. Rinse and repeat until he went down. After that, a door opened into a room filled with corpses of different bugs, tied up like trophies. Creepy. My reward was a new item, the grass doll. I turned in the quest at Bellhart and I got a new mask shard. On my way to the next boss, I stopped by the Underworlds. There, I found the 12th architect, but she was dead. I picked up a bundle of shards from the ground. Later, in the White Ward, I discovered the secret path by breaking hidden walls. After pulling a ring, I obtained the Surgeon's key. Using it on a lock to the west opened the path downward. At the bottom, I faced a new boss, the Unraveled. First, I had to clear a couple of normal enemies. Then the real fight began. He was massive, so big that just colliding with his hitbox killed me. His attack pattern in phase 1 was simple, but in phase 2, he summoned spears from the ground that made dodging tricky. Keeping track of everything was overwhelming. The Architect Crest did all the work here. The attacks were amazing. The spinning wheel and the conch cutter shredded the boss. When the Unraveled fell, something appeared. I traveled to the Silk-ridden place and gained a new Silk Heart. Next, I went to visit Eva and evolved my Hunter Crest. Back to the slab, I explored deeper until I found the key of the Indolent, which opened several locked doors. After clearing another gauntlet, I obtained the key of the Heretic. Using this, I uncovered the new health shard. Near one of the benches in the slab, I entered the hidden path leading to the area's map. Then, at the bottom right of the slab, I found a massive cage. It read Penitent, first of the first, guilty of the sin of apostasy, penance by constriction, absolution denied. I destroyed the chains holding it shut, one by one, and went inside. There was something I couldn't expect. Half spawn of a distant land. Within this cage, I have awaited. Let my strength be bound to yours. Reclaim the future of our cursed kingdom. A new boss fight, the first Sinner. He was fast, throwing huge needles from the air, teleporting across the arena, slashing with his claws. He even had a healing ability like me. To counter this, I used the flies, which attacked even when I couldn't reach him. His aerial needle attacks were tricky, so dodging was key. The Harpoon ability was crucial. It put me in close and gave me free hits. The fight boiled down to patience, dodging the spikes, punishing his heals, using the tools to keep pressure up. At the end, I was shown a vision. She called us daughters, called us divine. She lied. I gained a new silk skill, Rune Rage. I could weave runes of blazing silk upon enemies. It was literally the boss's own ability. It was amazing. Next, I went to finally clear the Coral Tower. I had a new strategy. Using the Plasmium Vial, I injected myself to gain extra life. Thanks to the Architect Crest, I could keep generating more vials, stacking them until I overdosed. This completely changed my health bar. Now, whenever I took damage, I regenerated health passively. The downside downside, I couldn't actively heal anymore, so Silk became basically useless. It worked! I survived all 3 rooms back to back, finally. Before continuing, I broke a stalactite from the ceiling, making it fall to the ground. This created a shortcut so I wouldn't have to fight the rooms again. After clearing another gauntlet, I made a super jump all the way up the tower and entered the boss arena. Crossed King Can appeared. I beat him in my first try. I couldn't believe it. My reward was in Grotto heart. I had all 3. I went back to the snail shamans in the ruined chapel and told them I carried the hearts. I sat down and they began chanting.
Is Kora. Faria dalach. This shore. Simandore. Guram.
Kora. Marrow.
Fadas.
I found the Everbloom, a fragile flower pulled from a deep and distant memory. Its pale light warded against the void. When I woke again, the shamans were gone, my objective updated. This was it, the final dive. I had to descend into the void and cut Farlum free, the last mission of the game. The problem was, my completion was only 90%. Before facing the end, I needed to gather the last musk shards, spool fragments, unlock every upgrade from Eva, and finish every side quest. The last journey had begun. The first thing I found was in the deep docks, the last craft metal. Thanks to it, I was able to buy the final tool I was missing, Silkshot, which I purchased from the Forge Daughter. Afterward, I kept hunting down the remaining collectibles. I managed to find all the spool fragments in the game. With this, my completion percentage climbed to 95%. While searching for the last musk shards, I entered a new area, Bright Vein, hidden inside a Mount Fae. The whole place was covered in ice. Climbing all the way up was brutal. It was a platforming challenge, but at the very top, I found one shard. The next shard was hidden in another place in Mount Fae. After picking another one at the very edge of the map, only the final one remained. I had to finish a quest, Dark Hearts. The objective was to destroy the void masses throughout Farlum. Once I took them all down, I went back to Bellhart to turn it in, and I did it. My maximum health was fully unlocked. The next step was to unlock the crest I was missing, the Witch Crest. The key was that little crying twisted bud in my inventory. I went to Shellwood and gave it to Greyroot. She told me it needed to be nourished and gave me a new quest, Rite of Rebirth. I was cursed. I couldn't heal myself. Continuing left, I cleared the hidden walls of roots and found a bench. But even then, I couldn't change crests, equip skills, tools, or anything. The curse blocked it all. At Bellhart, the shopkeeper saw how sick I was. I told her about the parasite inside me. She told me to talk to Pavo, but he didn't really say anything useful. So I traveled to Greymore, to the locked bell home. I knocked, begging for help, and explained my infestation. Eventually, someone let me in, Yarnaby. They gave me a new quest, Infestation Operation. In order to liberate myself from the curse, I needed steel spines, held by Benjit and Kroll. At Sinner's Road, they were gone. The item was there, I took it to Yarnaby. The curse was gone, and I earned the Crest of the Witch. My new moveset let me whip the needle in sweeping swings. With that, I had hit 97% completion. Next, I went to Eva. She had one last request, to bind her soul and memories to me. I accepted. I gained Eva's art, Silksong. Silk will now regenerate while resting at benches. Eva was now part of me. With that, I reached 98% completion. Only 2 Silk skills remained. First, I went to the Wormways. To the far west, I unlocked a door with my melody and found Sharp Dart, a dash that pierced enemies. Finally, I climbed through hidden ventilation shafts in the coral chambers and ascended higher and higher, even past Lace's arena. At the top, I found Grandmother Silk's severed arm. I bound myself to it and gained the last Silk skill, Pale Nails. Ghostly daggers spun around me and struck forward. Finally, I had done it. 100% completion in 50 hours. All that remained was the last mission, the final dive into the void to cut Farlum free. I went back to the diving bell at the deep docks. Ballo was waiting for me. He said he had improved the design, and this time everything was ready. I stepped inside, sat down, and I descended. I was back in the abyss. The bell landed safely. Then I arrived at the Black Lake.
Kestra.